No, I'm just seeing if I've got a video in here. I want to see if it plays.
And then once we vote for the next chair, we may leave musical chairs again. Sarah does like to sit here, so she can hear better. But for now, well, she's the co-chair right now, so until we vote.
Huh?
That's usually I think he's trying to figure out
Hi, sir. Hey, Hans.
so it's not fully done. Correct. We have chunks. That's not
Is there a way? So did you just play the link, or did you download it and then do the PDF?
Just tell me how you want it.
I just want it so it goes up like a PowerPoint presentation.
So like the Google Slides.
Yeah, the Google Slides would be easier. Leave this there just in case something goes wrong. And then slideshow. Just do slideshow. Then go back and do slideshow. Just do that.
Yeah, Dale sent a slideshow.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm planning on sending reminders. Yeah. For me, this is
So you're from
Great conviction. That's what great conviction.
Okay. Okay, let me get to my page. I should have moved it.
Use your iPad. Is it looking good? Fantastic.
Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Burling,
Here.
Commissioner Brzezowski. Here. Commissioner Booter. Commissioner Mickey.
Here.
Commissioner Montmorency.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the
the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the way it goes today is the first item is to, for the five of us to select a new chair, and then that chair takes over for the vice chair. Oh, yes, thank you.
And if you want, Madam Chair, I can lead the effort if you would like. I could lead this effort if you would like.
Okay,
Trying to help. Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, so as Commissioner Burling said, it's time to elect a chair and a vice chair for a 1-year term. And I'd suggest that we do this one position at a time rather than two. So we'll do the chair first, do a roll call. That person will then take the gavel, and then the second will be for the vice chair. Want to make it clear, it's in your packet, but want to make it clear that you could nominate yourself or another commissioner for either position. Well, let me back up for a second. I want to welcome the new Commissioner Booter to the dais. Welcome aboard. Nice to have you here. It's a different perspective from out there, right? Yeah, well, I'll ask you that again at the end of the meeting. So you can nominate yourself or another person. So I would suggest starting with the chair. And I'm happy to answer any questions about the format or the duties of either position.
Okay, I'd like to nominate Kelly for chair.
And I'd like to second that.
But any other nominations, oppositions?
For the other position?
What's that?
What was that?
Are there any oppositions to that motion or discussion or other nominations? Let's see. Don't think of it as the usual.
This is an easy vote.
All right. Okay, seeing none. Yvette?
Commissioner Burling,
Yes.
Commissioner Brzezowski,
You can vote.
Yes.
Commissioner Booter,
Yes.
Commissioner Mickey,
Yes.
Commissioner Montmorency. Yes. Thank you. Our new chair is Ms. Brzezowski.
We're not going to change.
Oh, you don't want to change seats? Okay. So, Madam Chair, it's now time
Vice chair.
for a vice chair. So the same process. Is there anyone who wants to make a nomination?
Well, I'll nominate Tamara for the vice chair.
Okay.
I'm happy to second.
Okay. Any discussions, comments, objections, other nominations? Nothing personal, Tamara. Just the process. Okay. See none. Let's do the roll call.
Commissioner Burling,
Yes.
Commissioner Brzezowski,
Yes.
Commissioner Booter,
Yes.
Commissioner Mickey,
Yes.
Commissioner Montmorency.
Yes.
Thank you. Our new vice chair is Ms. Commissioner Mickey.
Okay.
Thank you. I think
All yours.
with our,
No, they're not going to switch, but she has the gavel.
let's hope we don't need it.
Who's opening it on me?
Would we like to continue to announcements?
Yes, Madam Chair, I have 2 items. One is that this morning there was a mandatory AB 1234 ethics training. Hopefully all of you have attended. It's mandatory. If you did not, you still have to attend through the FPPC. You'll have to, Nova will email you I'll let you know that if you did not appear, that you will still have to attend a different
We've already
training.
talked about it, yeah.
Okay, so for those that did attend, thank you, and for those, you'll still have your turn. For the Urban Forest Master Plan Steering Committee members, it was optional for you to attend. If you did not get a chance to attend this morning, check in with Nova. She could still sign you up for that alternate training session. I don't know the date or any specifics. And the second thing is, well, Ramey, are you gonna?
No, go ahead.
You want me to do this?
I'll stay my time.
You would do it better.
Give her next just 3 minutes.
Well, if they'll give me two, if they'll split it up. I can do that.
Yeah,
Just
yeah. I'd like to do an announcement by having the Friends of Carmel Forest do the announcement for me.
You're all welcome to join us Saturday.
You have to do it at the podium.
Actually, your voice carries really well.
Yeah, that's what my husband says. I don't need hearing aids. You're all welcome to join us. I hope that you've seen the links in emails and mailings regarding the Saturday, June 22nd tree walk. We have a lecturer that's going to come and walk us from 8th down to Santa Lucia in the morning, and after lunch walk us from Santa Lucia back with a second group. So there's room for probably 50 or 60 people in those two groups to come and learn about the importance of the scenic Monterey cypress. And I hope you guys will all try to come. Thank you.
Those are all the announcements I have.
Okay. We'll move to the consent agenda. A reminder that items on the consent agenda are routine in nature and do not require discussion or independent action. Members of the commission or the public may ask that any items be considered individually for purposes of commission discussion and/or for public comment. Unless that is done, one motion may be used to adopt all the recommended actions. On today's consent agenda, we just have the meeting minutes for our last meeting held on May 9th.
I make a motion to accept the meeting minutes from May 9th.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Burley,
Yes.
Commissioner Brzezowski,
Yes.
Commissioner Buder,
I was in attendance, but I'm going to abstain because I wasn't on the commission.
thank you. Commissioner McGee,
Yes.
Commissioner Montmorency,
Yes.
thank you, the motion is passed.
Madam Chair, I've noticed that we have a grave omission on the agenda today. We forgot about public appearances. So I think we should, even though we have no public hearings, I think we should do it at this time, but you are the chair.
Right, no, I agree. That was we typically have a paragraph that we read about people who make public comment. Do we have it?
It's right, it's on the front of we had.
We've got, I'm on the iPad. We're missing it on the iPad. Okay, under the Brown Act, public comment for matters on the agenda must relate to that agenda item, and public comments for matters not on the agenda must relate to the subject matter jurisdiction of this body. This is a warning that if a member of the public attending this meeting remotely violates the Brown Act by failing to comply with these requirements, then that speaker will be muted. We will now be open to public comment. Do we have anybody in chambers that would like to speak today on topics that are not on today's agenda? Ramey?
My name is Ramey Allard with supporting the Friends of Carmel Forest, and I'm reading a letter today from a retired Carmel-by-the-Sea forester, Greg D'Ambrosio. He's unable to attend, but has written a letter. You all have that letter in front of you, and then I have some photos that I'd like to show you and other people here. Dear Acting Chair Burling, well, now I'm sorry, dear Chair and members of the Commission, 360 years ago this Christmas, when Vizcaino discovered this region and wrote of the port, the river, and the Indians, he mentioned a dense forest of tall pines suitable for ship masts, wrote Forester Hugh Smith, who was a member of the Carmel-by-the-Sea Planning Commission, in a 4-page special report on the village forest in a 1962 edition of the Carmel Pine Cone. Continuing his story about the uniqueness of the Monterey pine, Smith noted that this native tree had grove clusters in just a few locales of the world, and in California, the Monterey Peninsula, Santa Cruz, Cambria, and several offshore islands. Smith concluded his contemporary by stating, "It is the most handsome. The Monterey pine is and will be the upper level of our two-story forest. The upper canopy of our two-story forest is disappearing. It has been decimated by poor policies and the no visionary volte-face of policymakers, elected, appointed staff. Where our skyline and streetscapes once blossomed with pines and redwoods and cypress, we are in an expeditious effort to expand and to dignify lollipop trees, species of first-story stature, in two-tiered forest, of which Smith wrote. A resident should look no further than recent plantings along San Carlos Street between the Hospice House and Fifth Avenue to understand the twisting transformation of our forest. Where once upper canopy trees adorned the streetscape between Hospice House and Fourth Avenue, ginkgos have now recently been planted as part of a sidewalk replacement project. Where 6 upper canopy trees of the village forest once surrounded 3 sides of the now Stillwell Hotel, we have Mediterranean olive trees planted to match the interior courtyard of the hotel's landscaping, jarring our streetscape. Olive trees are non-native. On the north side of Fifth Avenue at San Carlos, adjacent to the Stillwell, is a mini park, a greenway planting area adjacent to the sidewalk and within the public's right-of-way. The mini park concept was introduced in Carmel-by-the-Sea over a half-century ago. Islands of landscaped, invulnerable sites away from overhead utility lines, where upper canopy trees would be secure in the commercial core. The referenced mini park on Park Avenue is now planted with olive trees, non-native lollipops which do nothing for our skyline or for our village forests. The removal of the pines which once resided at this site and the planting of a non-native and Tier 1 tree is an affront to our predecessors who conceived the idea of this greenway oasis in our downtown. They're an assault to our forestry history. A pepper tree of eventual lower canopy stature now resides at the exit of the post office parking lot, a location previously held by an upper canopy. A ginkgo planted on the sidewalk fronting Chez Noir, formerly a site of the pine. Several tree wells on the west side of Mission, south of 7th, have been covered over with hardscape, planting squares permanently removed. The list of 2-tier trees being replaced with Tier 1s is endless, and is the catalog of planting sites now removed by concrete or pavers or asphalt.
I just want to pause you for 1 second to say that we normally have 3 minutes for public comment. I know this is a really important issue for our city right now, so I'm going to let you continue to finish your letter.
Out of respect to Greg D'Ambrosio, I would hope so.
I definitely, so I just want to acknowledge, though, that we are giving you an extension to read this, and thank you so much. Okay.
Where is the Forest and Beach Commission as this denigration of our forest and of our history is wiped away from our public streetscapes? Where are your comments, your opposition to this transformation, to these callous changes upon our community? Why wasn't the commission involved in the decision on the new tree plantings along San Carlos and Fifth Avenue, and the non-planting of street trees along the Mission Street side of the Stillwell, where a very healthy young pine was removed so that the driveway apron could be expanded? The city code lists your duties to include, number 6, to review plans and submit comments to the Planning Commission. Why hasn't the commission notified the Director of Planning and Building of its need, desire, obligation to fulfill its designated advisory role on matters regarding trees and landscaping? I would ask that the commission initiate the following actions. 1, order the replacement of non-native olive trees surrounding the 3 sides of this Stillwell Hotel with Tier 2 upper canopy native trees to replace the 6 Tier 2 trees that were removed. 2, notify the city staff, both planning and building and public works, that the commission is to be involved in all future planning, tree and landscaping decisions, which are proposed for public spaces. Yes, public right-of-ways. Direct that all future plantings on public lands, open spaces, parks, streets, planters shall contain native trees and plants only. The famous landscape architect Lawrence Halprin once penned that landscapes and streetscapes are about creating a better world for future generations. We of this generation inherited a two-tier forest, a grove unique upon the earth. Let us pass along this strong legacy to their heirs. So just a pictorial, I'll quickly show. This is what it looked like, and this is what it looks like now. It's a shame. This is what it looked like, and this is what it looks like now. Thank you for the time.
You're welcome. Do we have anybody else that would like to offer public comment?
Good afternoon. My name is Ian Martin. I am a resident and a former planning commissioner. I had the great pleasure of seeing Play Misty for Me at the Forest Theater over the weekend, which is sponsored by the Forest Theater Guild. And the movie, as many of you may know, was filmed in 1971, so quite some time ago. And it was a wonderful time capsule of the Monterey Peninsula. And a number of the scenes were filmed in the downtown. And one thing that struck me especially is how more rich the Monterey pine forest seemed in the downtown where some of the scenes were filmed, and then also some of the cypresses on Carmel Beach. So it's a wonderful little time capsule and kind of a love letter to the Monterey Peninsula, as it kind of really saturates on the area's natural beauty. So it was an interesting reference point, and it kind of speaks to exactly what the comments that Greg D'Ambrosio were making in that letter as well, and that our forest is in decline. And we can see that by evidence by the movie I just referenced, but also in photographs, postcards, and other popular media. We can see definite evidence that our forest is in fact in decline, and it's incumbent upon us to restore it to try and get it back to at least where is approaching where it once was. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Isn't this really talking about what we're coming to, as this isn't?
I would say no, they're not talking specifically about the Urban Forest Master Plan or the workshop, which is on the agenda.
That's right.
This is peripheral to it, but I would say that, yes. But we should, if they start talking about the master plan itself, then that should be deferred until this item.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak?
That's really what they're talking about.
I'm here really to reassure myself that you all heard what we were saying at the workshop last month, which was an excellent venue for us to be able to speak out as residents, regardless of your individual preferences for views or trees or whatever. I heard that the vast majority of the people in that room were saying, we want our Monterey pines.
Excuse me, we'd love to hear your public comment. We're going to ask you to come back when we talk about that agenda item today on the agenda. That's coming up.
That's going to be covered. Okay.
Correct.
Thank
the
you.
public comments at this juncture are just purely non-agenda items on today's agenda. So anything related to our master plan or the workshop would be on the agenda.
Hi, I'm Victoria Beach. I just want to thank Ms. Allard for reading Greg D'Ambrosia's beautiful letter. It occurs to me that we have a responsibility when we think about whatever changes or evolution of our board and our staff come along naturally as they do. Greg is now retired. We have in this community been blessed in the past with long-serving repositories of information about, in this case, our forest. When we come to having new folks in the town or on boards, I think it's incumbent on us to learn from those of us who have come before to remember all this stuff. It's impossible to start fresh, and I'm looking at the staff and the council, the commission members, without familiarizing yourself to that and try to reinvent it all. You have to learn it the hard way through a belated workshop, et cetera, as opposed to conferring as much as possible with the history, with the people that came before, with the books that have been written. And I would just advise that as any changes come in the future, that we look for staffing, consultants, and commission members who can be made familiar with that and are devoted to it in the way that Greg D'Ambrosia was. So I just want to thank him again from the ghost appearance through Ms. Allard. So,
Thank you very much, Victoria.
Good afternoon, commissioners, and welcome, Hans, to the board. I think this is the right time to say it. I'm just making a general comment, really. When I think of Carmel, I think of a beautiful, charming village in the forest by the sea. Our forest gives Carmel a magical quality that other seaside towns lack. Monterey and Pacific Grove are pretty, but Carmel is stunning. The trees in Carmel form an enchanting green arch that beckons you into our village. Our forest is one of the most significant defining features of our village. Without our forest, Carmel would look rather ordinary. If we replaced our trees with average suburban non-native trees, the magic of Carmel would be lost. Protecting our urbanized forest, mainly the Monterey cypress, the Monterey pines, the coast live oaks, and the redwoods, is essential. I have ocean views, and I understand people's concern about protecting them. I also understand fears about unhealthy, dead, or heavily leaning trees. We all want to feel safe in our homes. I think that proper tree maintenance and care is critical. I have lovely neighbors who graciously trim their trees for safety and greater visibility. I find ocean views are enhanced with cypress trees. Many professional photographers who photograph Carmel capture images with cypress trees and the ocean because it's more visually pleasing. I think most people who choose to live here were attracted to the unique beauty of Carmel, and we must preserve that beauty for future generations. Let's work together to protect our trees and the animals that they are home to. According to the Arbor Day Foundation, trees help fight climate change. Trees absorb CO2 and other pollutant particulates through the natural process of photosynthesis. Then they store the carbon and emit pure oxygen. Trees also remove air pollution by the interception of particulate matter on plant surfaces and the absorption of gaseous pollutants through the leaf stomata. Trees improve our health and our mental well-being and are essential in supporting a healthy environment. Trees can also help protect you from radiation. When trees are between your house and a source of EMF radiation, they will help to reduce it. In particular, trees can reduce wireless RF radio frequency radiation. Trees can also help block the electric fields originating from overhead power lines. Quite simply, trees make our lives better. It benefits us all to preserve and protect Carmel's urbanized forest. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else in chambers that would like to speak on non-agenda items at this time?
Good afternoon. Dale Burns, speaking as Carmel Cares. And congratulations, Kelly. I think that's wonderful. And welcome, Hans. I've been working with Hans on another citizen committee and have been very impressed. So you're lucky to have him on my favorite commission, I have to say. And for those of you who don't come to every meeting, you should, because this is probably the most important commission. You've seen some reasons why already in the speakers. How do I get this going? I just need to get the slideshow button pushed. Okay, all right. Here we go. I'm wasting my... I do know how to use a mouse, trust me. You do it. Just click on slideshow and I'll be happy. There we go. All right, so I think those of you who have been on the commission for a while know I like to keep you up to date on Carmel Cares projects, things that you voted on or that you should be concerned about. And we've been making good progress on the Ocean Avenue Median project, which is a significant project, probably on the order of $100,000 total, shared pretty much 50-50 with the city. Raul Hernandez's and Alan Wheat's crews have been busy doing an incredibly professional job. I've been supervising them part of the time. But this is a couple days ago. They're on the end of Monte Verde. We finished that median today. They finished the entire irrigation process. We also upgraded the irrigation components with Town and Country on all 5 medians. So now as we go, the timers and all that equipment is in. Oops. I have a map. This is different. Good. So that's one that's completed. That's the end of another one. That's the one at Dolores. Okay, so that project, what's going to happen is next Tuesday we're going to plant the San Carlos to Dolores median. The boulders are already in place. Right now as we speak, they're detailing it, getting it ready. Tuesday we'll plant. Wednesday they'll do the irrigation. Hopefully Thursday or Friday they'll do the demo on the other 2 medians closest to Junipero. Our goal is to have everything done by the 4th of July. That's pretty aggressive, so I'm not sure we'll make it, but that would be a good goal. So, and so far, all the positive comments have been pretty astounding. There was a moment in time where they said, too many boulders, but we're not hearing that anymore. Just wait till the grasses come in. It's going to be spectacular. I really think that our town can win an award for this. Okay, the next project that you haven't been as involved with, but I'd like you to keep your eye out for it.
May I ask just one
Yes.
question, point of information
yeah.
on what you've done on the
Yep.
ocean medians?
You're in charge.
One of the reasons we talked about the boulders and the plan was
Yes.
to prevent the pedestrian,
Yes.
hopping mid-block.
Yes.
Do we have any data that we could show, like before and after, the reduction in pedestrian jaywalking,
Well, there are a lot of
climbing
us who
through the
watch
medians?
it a lot, and it's not going to be that effective at stopping people. I mean, there
Okay.
are people not climbing over the boulders, but I see them every day when I'm out there. But what's going to happen is the hedges, the coffee berries are going to grow.
As it
and
grows.
they can grow this high
Right.
and
And the
really
grasses
wide.
too.
The grasses are going to be like this big. So combination, Pepe had some concerns about them growing too tall, but we're going to maintain it. This is going to be maintained constantly. So as they grow, we will keep them to the right size, because if you get them too big, then they become woody. So it has to be under control all the time, and we're going to work with Justin and his team on that.
I just think if there were a way to capture the sort of pre and post, or measure some kind of baseline jaywalking now versus
Yes.
once it's grown in, to your
Yes.
point, where it's more of a deterrent.
Put
You
a
know, that's a,
We'll have coffee and talk about
that's
it.
good for grant money, that's good for winning awards, right? You likely could get data to support the objectives of the program.
Similar to what we're doing with the cigarette butts and other things.
Right.
All right, that
Yeah.
sounds good. Let's have coffee and
Anyhow,
talk
okay.
about it. All right, so the next project is the Vista Lobos refresh. We're not making major changes to the park itself. It's just vegetation. It was tired. So we're removing all invasive species, which is a very exciting thing for me, because the invasives are taking over our town, and that's a future discussion. Noel Carr and I did all of the demo, if I could have some more time. Noel Carr and I did all the demo because we have a budget of $3,000 from the city discretionary grant, which Bob has a fire lit under me to get done by June or July. And then we also got $3,000 from Keep America Beautiful, but we have $8,000 in addition that we're raising. So we still have some fundraising to do. We had a meeting there with everyone that needs to make approvals to get an encroachment permit and the permit for the park renewal. And there were a couple issues that came up. I'm not going to get into detail on them, but one of them was regarding the grading of the pathway. And we came to an agreement that we would do a like-for-like refresh as opposed to diverting some of the water into the gardens like a rain gardens. But we can take a look at some of the improvements later, and we might have to come back and do some further improvements. But it's going to be beautiful, and keep your eye out because it's going to start on Monday. We have a project to refresh the signage on Scenic Pathway, which we haven't really started. I would love it if one or more of you would like to get involved, working with Shirley and me and perhaps some other people to discuss the signage requirements. We are getting some posts so that we can start doing some prototypes. So if anybody wants to put their hand up and get involved with this, we'd love you to do that. It's sort of a big project because there are like 50 signs. In the meantime, Bob, we need to talk about this. We'll talk about it tomorrow at our meeting. These signs are tired and need to be replaced or eliminated. Okay, so the next thing, that's the Outlook area that the Carmel Leadership Group did. They did a really nice job. It's beautiful, and it sort of represents the model for the future for the entire pathway, getting rid of the 4x4 pathway barriers. So this is what it looks like. That project has been approved by you, thank you, and we were hoping to have had 60 posts in the ground by now, but we don't have our encroachment permit yet. A couple issues have come up, one of which is that we're actually going to replace dirt with permeable DG, and that we're being told that we need to honor the 2,500 limit on residential development. So that hasn't been worked out yet. We're hoping it has been, but if what we're proposing now is we won't put DG in, we'll just leave dirt, and then we'll figure it out later. But we need to get that project started, so anything you can do to encourage the powers that be to give us our permit, we'll get started. Again, that's a case where we just replaced, we took the 4x4 out and we just left dirt. That's probably what we're talking about doing right now. So this is a real passion of mine. I know Bob's not going to be happy with me bringing this up again, but this is the 12th Avenue stairway. And basically, at this point, we've been told it's going to be 1.5 years before we can open that stairway. Unfortunately, in the meantime, there are dangerous things on the existing stairway. I'm going to show you a couple of them. That's one of them. They're pointed sticks, and that was repaired poorly, and that actually moves, that one stairway. There are also bolts sticking out, which could gouge somebody, and there are my dogs. Now, I think that's actually 10th, and there are nails sticking out, which look like that. So that's a liability, probably a lawsuit with the city if somebody was actually going to get cut on that. I really hope we don't have to wait for a 1.5 years to make that open. In the meantime, this is what's happening. These are 60 to 70-year-olds. This was this weekend. Somebody took the board down that was blocking the top. But even then, people were coming from the bottom and helping all their relatives. This isn't good. Unfortunately, we're down there all the time, so we see this stuff.
It's an accident waiting to happen, isn't it?
Well, the whole thing is an accident waiting to happen. So I'm going to go back. So I'm almost through. In the meantime, unintended consequences, we clean the beach every day. On my last poop bag run, it's because people couldn't get up and put their poop bags in the trash can. They left them here. There were 5 large dog poop bags left there that I had to reach over, pick up, and then go dispose of at another stairway. This is happening all the time. The funny thing is, at the same time that we have the stairways closed, we have this sign saying walking on slopes is prohibited. Please use the stairway. So that's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much. By the way, we have every other Friday meetings with Public Works. They're an hour long. They start at 10:30, and we can't have more than 2 of you there, but I would invite any 1 or 2 of you to attend, and I will send you an invite for the meeting tomorrow morning. I send them out on Monday morning, and they're going to be on Zoom tomorrow because I have to be home. My wife's going somewhere. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much, Dale. We appreciate all that Carmel Cares does. Anybody else would like to make a public comment before we jump into our agenda?
I'm not in the city.
Good afternoon, Commission and staff. Melanie Billig. I'd just like to make some comments about the look of the village and downtown. We've got wonderful Carmel Cares. I just wish the city were doing as beautiful and wonderful work as our residents do every single day, including weekends. It has been mentioned about all these non-natives that we're so, judiciously, and I'm being very ironic, very, appalling the number of trees that are being planted that have nothing to do with this ecosystem, this environment, or the traditions of this town. And I hope some of you are noticing that these non-natives are dying because they cannot acclimate to this environment. Non-natives have to be emphasized in everything that we do, and it will serve us very, very well with the upcoming, climate change that seems to be increasing. But we are a refuge from that. I've got 3 cars from Arizona across the street from me. Hardly can we back out of our driveway. because why? It's boiling every place else but here. But what we're doing is we're destroying the forest that helps to protect us. I mean, Christy also mentioned all the advantages, but actually these trees, I don't know if I've mentioned this to you before, but these trees repel heat back into the atmosphere. It's a scientific fact. And if you don't believe me, I will bring information to you. The point is we ought to, instead of disgracing this community with all of these non-natives, we should be planting double time, triple time our native trees. This is what's going to protect us. We can go 2 to 3 degrees Celsius over what the climate is today on our hottest day, and these trees will survive. They have been here, they were brought here through tectonics 15 million years ago. They are survivors. They are not a problem. What you're planting is a problem. I hate to say this, but you guys really need to get on board with what's happening in this community. What you are doing, you're destroying something very precious, something indigenous that's going to provide us with the help that we need to get through climate change. And the proof of that is all of the people who came here last year when Arizona was boiling over. And we had all of these people from other parts of California as well as Western states. So please do your job and protect this forest. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Andy Carr. First of all, I want to say God bless Dale Burns. He and all Carmel Cares has done an amazing job in bringing back Carmel, and they're not only doing a service to Carmel-by-the-Sea, but they're all having so much fun. It's good for the mental health of the people living in Carmel, so he's contributed a great deal to this community. My thing is maintenance. I don't really know a lot about trees. I know about trees because I've built several houses here. I've had to build around the trees. I've had trees that died. I didn't know they were sick. So, and I'm a conscientious person. So I had no idea that I had to maintain these trees. I knew they were just here and they were planted and that was going to be it. So I think a lot of people here would not be as worried about the trees if they knew how to maintain them and if they knew how to identify when they were sick, so that then they wouldn't be falling on cars and structures, etc. So I don't know how we go about this. When Sarah Davis was here as forester, I had talked to her at great length about maintaining the trees. I had the good fortune of meeting her because I looked up one day and saw one of my big pine trees in the front all brown. I didn't know it was sick. She came, she says, it's dead. I mean, it was like overnight, I thought. Well, it had turpentine beetle. What's turpentine beetle? Well, you can identify turpentine beetle if you know that it's disease and it looks like it has termites because there's all this white around the tree. So if more people knew about these kinds of things, they could call an exterminator, which is what you need to do to take care of the turpentine beetle or whatever. It makes them aware. They could call the city to find out about it. So I think it's maintenance and educating the public as to tree maintenance is very important. And I don't know if this is the time to say it, so shut me up if I'm not supposed to say it now. As far as what's going on in the city with the trees, I walk a lot and I've seen some trees fall over, some of the cypress on Scenic look horrific because of the storms. I've seen stumps left up here. Then I found out the stumps need to go all the way down, that the people who are taking out the stumps are not doing it properly. I see trees that are in the PG&E wires, and people don't know who to call as far as maintaining those things. But when we built our last house, we had to build around these trees, and there were more trees on that lot than I wanted to be there, honestly. But anyway, we built around the trees, and they allowed us to take out some trees, but we had to replace trees. And we didn't have the choice of an olive tree or whatever. We only had the choice of upper canopy trees. So I would like to know, because of what they're all saying, when that ordinance, when was that do away with? Because I had no idea that they were being allowed to
I don't think the ordinance hasn't been done away with. There's just been the ordinance is actually a recommendation, correct? Yeah. Justin and Tom? Yeah, it's a recommendation.
Well, it's a recommendation, but then trees have been planted. To me, a recommendation is that you speak about it, then you educate people about it, then you vote on it. I mean, a recommendation doesn't mean that you take out trees and put in these trees that are not supposed to be allowed. And I'm particularly amiss about it because I had to plant upper canopy trees. So I'm not happy. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Anybody else in chambers that would like to make a non-agenda item comment?
Please stick with the 3 minutes, too.
Yep.
Oh, I don't have much to say. My name is David O'Neill, and I just had a really good idea brought to me by my hopefully going to be sister-in-law soon. And she was saying that because we're talking about a lot of the trees that have been planted around the neighborhoods, and a lot of them are dying, unfortunately, even the ones that we're trying to keep alive. But she was saying that the environmental scientist students and the different curriculums and stuff like that might be happy to help like that. So that might be something we can look into.
Thank you very much for your comment.
Kathleen Blair. I was really saddened walking down to the beach down 12th Street the other day that all of a sudden from, I would say, Camino Real down to the beach, I just saw ugly utility poles. All the beautiful trees. I never knew that the utility poles were there. And I wake up almost daily to the sound of chainsaws. I would say within 2 or 3 blocks, there's like 8 trees that have been taken down. There's a lot of new houses, or old ones being redone. I would like to see a moratorium on cutting any healthy trees until we all get on the same page. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Hi, I'm Tasha Witt. Welcome, Kelly and Hans. I just had a concern about seeing all the dead trees that are lopped off with telephone wires attached to them, and wondered what was being done about grinding them out and removing them and making sure no telephone wires are attached to trees, working with PG&E or whoever you need to work with. I just have seen them so long, these dead totem poles, and I would like to see, that doesn't look very healthy, so thank you.
Thank you so much. Any other comments in chambers? Yvette, do we have anybody online? And I'm just curious, how many hands do you see online?
Right now there are 2, and Charles, if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself. Charles, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, can you hear me?
There you go.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to comment today. I just wanted to make a few points about the fact that I sort of view this commission as a steward of the unique urban forest. I think the forest, obviously, what you heard today is it sets us apart from everyone else. Many cities have ocean views, but they don't have an urbanized forest like we do. Using surveys and advocating for ocean views, I don't think it's very helpful, at least coming from the commission. And I'd like to point out that special status species live in the city, and these species are protected under pretty strict environmental laws. And the health and vitality of these species depends on the native habitat. And by disturbing them, by definition, is an adverse environmental impact. And I'm not aware of any legal right to make decisions that would impact these species. Certainly no survey supersedes the law or gives anyone the authority to break it. And creating ocean views is not consistent with these environmental protections. What I've noticed is it's unfortunate because the city seems to be following, it doesn't seem to be following the existing forest plan. And now it appears as though you're interested in inculcating your current practices into the new plan. And I think this would accelerate impacts to special status species. I mean, I never view the urbanized forest as something you manicure, that you pick and choose non-native trees, you dictate tree heights, and certainly not plant all of them pepper trees. Mr. Ambrosius' comments were very, very good, and I'm not going to go over all of them, but I agree with everything he said. I think that, getting back to the Stillwell Hotel, it might have been appropriate to remove the native pines there, the mature native pines there, depending on the health of those trees. But what clearly wasn't appropriate was planting 10 olive trees in their place. I don't know what happened to like for like, native for native, pine for pine, but that certainly doesn't reflect that. I guess I'm arguing that your role is to protect the forest, not to degrade it. And I think you should be fighting to preserve it. Not only that, but when one native tree is removed, several more of the same should be planted, like for like, native for native. This is a basic environmental mitigation strategy used in many cases where the environment has deteriorated from past actions or even past inactions. And I think it's the only way the city can revive the urbanized forest and reduce impacts to special status species and other habitat. I think if you continue to transition our forest from urbanized to urban, instead of preserving and reviving it, you're going to continue to face significant pushback, and even, I think, potentially environmental legal challenges. I really think it behooves you to look at the specific environmental protections and ensure your plan reflects that.
Thank you.
Anyway, thank you very much for allowing me to comment.
Thank you, Charles. Was there one other?
Yes, Linda Smith. Linda, go ahead, and you can unmute yourself.
Yes. Yes, hello. Just following on Greg D'Ambrosia's letter and Victoria Beach's comments, I've been going back over old pine cones, and I found some wonderful references that really sort of evoke that spirit of Carmel, the original soul, as my father used to call it. There's one article from 1921 about city growth demands Civic League's revival. And the Civic League was an auxiliary of the Arts and Crafts League or Society, and the precursor of the Planning Commission and the Parks, actually, Forest and Beach Commission, the original, the Parks Commission. And there's an excerpt here. The League has been revived, according to its officers, for the limited purpose of so cooperating with the city authorities and with other existing organizations in a sustained and permanent endeavor to maintain the picturesqueness of Carmel. To that end, to stimulate and foster a strong public sentiment opposed to machine-made ugliness, to discourage and wherever possible to prevent needless encroachments on the natural beauty of Carmel and vicinity, to enlist the sympathies of newcomers to Carmel in this ideal as soon as practical after their arrival, and to inculcate into the school children generally accepted principles of taste and love of natural, irregular, and rugged beauty. And that's what Carmel was. It was a combination of those factors, the rugged beauty, and I think we fought for all these decades to maintain that. And there was another article, a charming article from 1921, The Carmel Garden. To add to a great wild garden of forest, field, sea, and mountains, as is Carmel-by-the-Sea, is a task which requires fine consideration. In fact, the wild woods of Old Carmelo are so beautiful in their native state that they can safely be left alone without, quote, improvement in the way of additional planting. The Pine Cone will later publish a list of trees, shrubs, climbers, and plants whose beauty will not clash with the simplicity of the native Carmel woods. But before this is done, precaution should be taken against indiscriminate planting of a lot of things. Study a bit the simplicity and see how out of place is the voluptuous, overwrought fluorescence of so many of the common garden hybrids, the exaggerated size, yes, and coarseness of so many of these, quote, cultured plants and flowers compared to the charming modesty, the delicacy of coloring of the children of the wilderness. Thus, in selecting plants for Carmel Gardens, such should be excluded which speak of the handiwork of man, as much so as the arrangement and planting should, as far as possible, show no sign of human arrangement, that the spontaneity of the wild garden be not disturbed. To be explicit, avoid all artificiality in adding to the wild gardens of Carmel. And I think that sort of sets the tone for what we might want to aspire to. I know things have gone in a further direction, but I think we can hark back to that as sort of a model to try to recreate and restore our forest and some of its understory to be more like what Mother Nature planted here originally, that enchanted everybody who came here early on and made Carmel what it is today.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Anybody else on Zoom with a hand up?
No one at this time.
Okay. I'd just like to thank everybody that came today to speak. I think many of you attended the community workshop that is our first agenda item that we're going to be speaking to next. And we asked you to be involved and to come, and it's really great to see how much participation we had at the community workshop and how many of you came today to make a comment before we continue. I think we're going to be moving into our first agenda item, which is the conversation that is our review of public comments related to the community workshop that we held. I'd just like to reiterate as we dive into that portion of the agenda that we haven't even yet seen a draft plan of the Urban Forest Master Plan. So there is no plan that's been drafted yet. There is no, that plan will be available for public comment when we do have it. I think everybody here is trying to do the right thing, which is, there was a person who spoke early at our community workshop that said, what is our vision for Carmel 20, 40, 60 years from now? And that's really what is at the heart of the Urban Forest Master Plan. What do we want it to look like in the future, right? How do we put a strategic plan in place that allows that to achieve us? I think what the trees come up because we have an old forest and a lot of deferred maintenance in our old and aging forest, and that needs attention too. And so we're balancing both of those things. And with that spirit, before Justin and Tom take it away, I'd just like everybody to appreciate that we don't have a draft plan. There's nothing that's, we haven't seen a draft plan. It's something that we're still, I think our city staff is working with Davey on. Once we have a plan, it will certainly be shared for public comment. And we have a lot of work still to do to complete that. So there's plenty of opportunity for everybody's participation and input in that process. Justin?
We did.
We did that. Yep,
Yeah.
we're good. We're good. Yep, it went so fast, we're good. So we're moving into the orders of business for this meeting, and with that, we'll turn it over to a review of the public comments received at our community workshop on May 22nd.
Thanks, Kelly. Tom, you want to do the introduction? Okay, so we're here to kind of go over the meeting. I know a lot of you were there, so we're kind of gonna go over what happened, what we felt were the key takeaways, and kind of talk about next steps going forward. Me and Tom here. So we had the meeting on May 22nd at Carpenter Hall to kind of garner feedback and input from the pieces of the chunks, as Bob puts it, of the technical documents that we've done so far. We put it out in the Pine Cone, the Friday letters, and we talked about it. We dialed in the topics in the Forest and Beach meeting right before it, and then the turnout was amazing. We had a lot of, you were all there. I was blown away, and all of our acting commissioners were there pretty much. It was really well attended. Councilmember Barron was there, and then some visitors from Pacific Grove to kind of see what we have going on. So one of the things that Tom noticed, and we both noticed, is that when we asked about who had heard of the survey, it didn't seem like a lot of people had heard about it. We advertised it in the Pine Cone. We advertised it in the Friday letter almost every week. It was open for 45 days at some of the major areas in town, the post office, Public Works, City Hall, and the library. And just we want to reemphasize that we really felt like we did the best we could to advertise it out there. And if anyone had any suggestions, would be open to that too. If not that we're doing another survey, but just wanted to put that back out there, that we did really felt like we did our best to advertise it. All right, Tom, you want to go over some stuff?
Good afternoon. Thanks, Justin. I'm just going to continue right on here. I'm going to start at where the attachments are. We have 3 attachments to this agenda item. The first is the agenda. So this is kind of a recap for folks that actually were not present of what we did. And then attachments 2 or 3 is every piece of written comment from the public, as well as what was expressed verbally. It was not recorded, unfortunately. We will next time, like video recorded. However, we did do our very best to record on a computer as folks were talking. So we did our very best to capture, comments from the public. So I'm going to go over a couple of those now. The first, as I had said, is the agenda. So we had started out with future educational topics and exercise. I believe Andy Carr had spoken about an educational topic she would like. So that's something that we're going to add to our list here. So there's a list of a whole bunch of topics that folks had said that they would like to learn about. This goes back to the days when Greg D'Ambrosio had released a monthly short newsletter that I believe he published in the Pine Code called Out on a Limb. So we have that similar type of idea queued up. So thank you very much for the topics that folks had said they wanted to hear. We went over a brief history of the process of this master plan thus far, how we had started in 2022. We've since been gathering technical studies and data, each of which we have brought to the Forest and Beach Commission, and all of those technical studies, all of those reports are on our city website for anyone in the public should they wish to go to. It's our address of our normal city website /UFMP, ci.carmel.ca.us/UFMP. We had given a notice about a meeting that had just passed. That's also up on our city website. Peter Quintanilla had discussed some trees along Scenic Road. There's, as we'd heard from Ramey, there's also an upcoming walk that they're going to be presenting some information on. The following element of our evening was a slideshow of information from the community survey. We had a tree keeper, which is a software we use here in the city that details our tree inventory, which is one of the deliverables that our consultants had provided us. Bob went over some of our forestry resources, and by the way, all the information on each one of these is a summary of what was discussed during that portion of the evening. Then we get into the meat and potatoes, which is the breakout sessions. I'm going to pull up all those sticky notes from folks in the public in just a moment. We're going to go over one of those questions so people can get an idea of the kind of responses we got. And then we had ended with some feedback about, essentially what we missed, what worked well, what did we miss, what would folks like us to collectively address moving forward. So let's jump into some of the feedback. Many of our questions, so for example, this one, meshing together, how do we take care of and honor our native species alongside having a balanced variety, a reasonably balanced variety of species. So you'll notice that many of the answers, let me try to enlarge this, many of the answers were very similar. I'm just going to touch on a couple of them here. There's a fundamental question: maintain the percentage of native pines and oaks in the city. The appropriate response is to plant Monterey pines, Monterey cypresses, oaks that are from strains that have been showing themselves to be drought, disease resistant. Tree species diversity is essential. The top three have survived, the top three being pines, oaks, cypresses, have survived droughts for centuries. Better management of our current native trees. Need to see the trees as part of an ecosystem. We live in a town in a forest. It would be good to have this information done by a forest ecologist. Monterey pines are more resistant to, I reviewed this word and I can't read it currently. Perhaps pests.
Problems?
Problems, thank you. When in large stands, so diversity may not be the answer. This must be answered by scientists with input from scientists as opposed to based on opinion polls. Variety in tree species, mainly native, the main three recommended. We need a scientific study to answer this question. We cannot manage the forest ecosystem based on opinion polls. So you start to see recurring themes. And what we pulled out of so many of these comments are a set of recurring themes. That's what I'm highlighting currently on the screen, and I'll read those out. One of those, if I continued to read all of those sticky notes, you would see that the predominant theme is the feedback from the community is protect, prioritize, and adequately care for native tree species. In particular, our predominant native tree species of Monterey pines, coast live oaks, and Monterey cypress. Maintain what we have. Wanted the folks in the community to know that we are taking that into account. We are listening. What you are saying was heard loud and clear, and we want to recognize that and to follow that and honor the wishes of the folks of the community. So you've spoken loud and clear, and we appreciate you having said that. Two other themes that popped up throughout the evening was addressing the community survey's validity, as well as the terms urban forest versus urbanized forest. I know Justin's going to touch on that, I believe, in just a minute when I toss it over to him. One of the things that we have mentioned for the surveys, regarding the survey's validity, is that there was an excellent comment that was brought up that said, why wasn't a random sample done, which is a scientifically accurate way to capture the sentiments of a larger community through the most scientific measures possible. And although that is a consideration, that method purposely excludes people from being able to participate. We think it's a wonderful method, but that method does purposely exclude people, as opposed to a type of survey where you open it up to anyone who would like to participate. And that was the one that we had elected for. So granted, any one type of survey may have its downfalls. So we want to be cognizant of that. That's the reason why we chose the survey that we did, and we did our very best to seek input for folks when we had created that. And lastly, another theme from the evening was to seek further input from scientists, professors of ecology and forestry, and licensed and certified professionals in these fields. And regarding that point, the city intends to do that, to continue doing that throughout the process. We have several times, we can certainly highlight that, but while we seek input from those qualified professionals, we do also want to say that we're going to continue to recognize the importance of seeking input from the community. Justin, I'd like to toss it back to you to discuss how these influence our next steps moving forward.
Yeah, and just to touch on the urban forest versus urbanized forest, we hear you loud and clear, and I don't want to get stuck on semantics. If that is such a big issue, we could just call it a forest management plan or something. And in terms of science is repeatable, and we should have data. I think I've only seen the term urbanized forest in the last forest master plan. So we're gonna do our research. It's not saying anything. So we're gonna do our research, find it, and figure out what the best term is, if it's just to use a forest management plan or if we go back to the urbanized forest. So the next steps, we're going to get Davey to finish the report, where they're at. We're getting their our comments back to them, and we should have a mostly done draft that we should at least be able to get them done, so we can take it and do with it what we will. We're again not adopting, just taking it in, going through what makes the most sense for our town and our community and our tree species, and then we don't want to adopt something that's not going to work for everyone in our future, because that's the whole goal of this. Wasn't just to come in and change things. I know I wasn't here when this all started, but I feel that this was started with the intentions of just an update to bring things into the next 50 years, and a plan that large, we're not going to just jump on it. We're still, as much as Bob is bugged to how slow this is taking, it's in its infancy, so we're still working on building towards a final product, but we're not close.
Bugged? I see. No, seriously, if I may interject something right here. Going back to the urban forest master, you mentioned that we're going to have the consultant finish up the report. We're not going to adopt it as is without filtering it. One of the things that we can, and we did talk about this a little bit at the workshop as well as here at the commission meeting. The majority of the work that the consultant did was factual, data-driven things that are not really in dispute. One thing that's completely went off the rail, in my opinion, was the tree species list. We heard you loud and clear. That one, that needs a lot of work. The tree inventory was done great. I put it all into the GIS database, and we have the tree keeper system. That's going great. The tree canopy and land cover assessment, factual, data-driven information. What were some of the other?
The resource assessment.
The resource assessment, which is coming before the commission again soon. Or not again, but coming before the commission. So I call them chunks. The technical studies that they did, by and large, good job, was brought to this commission with the commission and the steering committee. It was hashed out, it was discussed, there were a couple little tweaks here and there, but the lion's share of the urban forest master plan is the data-driven technical studies are fine. With one exception, the tree species list that wish we could go back in time and start all over, but we can't. We got a lot of feedback, which was good. That's the whole idea. We knew we would. Not a surprise. So that needs a lot of work. And taking the data, and we're going to get a draft from the consultant as a starting point. We have every right to completely edit the executive summary, how we're going to implement it, what's the priority based on the community, based on the commission, based on the steering committee. So we have a long ways to go in making it the city's plan, but there's no reason to start all over and count trees again. Total waste of time. So we have a lot, so I wanted to clarify that I get some feedback that the whole plan is poorly done. It's terrible. One part was. A lot of it was just fine, good, solid information that we have, wonderful, and we're going to take what we have and we're going to tweak what we need and keep going forward. And you're right, prior to this was considered a capital improvement project that has deadlines. Okay, that deadline is going to come and go. There's no deadline. The deadline is when this commission is ready to adopt the plan and recommend that the city council adopt the master plan. I didn't call it anything. I didn't mess with the first two words. When the council adopts the plan, then from there, then we can go into the ordinances and implementation strategies and things like that nature. Okay, so.
Chair, would you mind if I ask Bob a question?
Go ahead.
When it comes to the policy section of the master plan, I guess, who's going to take the lead in drafting that? You know, and presumably we're providing guidance on the front end there.
The new chair.
No.
Yeah.
All days.
No.
All of us.
No, our consultant is winding down. They're going to give us the report. We're done with them. Mm-hmm. We can hire another consultant. There's talk about more scientists involved, and I think we already have some ideas, specific ideas, to get local expert ecologists and scientists to participate. I think one was mentioned about students, the universities or whatever. Yeah, there's a lot of options to get local participation to help us draft it. I think by default, Justin would be the primary author, but he won't be doing it by himself.
I have one other thing I want to add, and there were some comments in those little stickers that this was a waste of money having that group. The group was paid for by a, what would you call it? It wasn't our money.
We were awarded a CAL FIRE grant for $150,000. To date, we've received zero. We have written to our state senator in opposition. We've talked to the CAL FIRE people.
That's interesting.
That it's impossible, essentially impossible to recover that grant funds. We haven't completely given up. We've thrown in the towel several times. We have one more towel left. Mm-hmm. But if we receive any funding, it would be a relatively minor share of the $150,000.
Was there more of the presentation, Justin and Sean, that you wanted to complete? Because we've started to drift into commission discussion, which is fine. I just want to see if there's, if you want to just
go through the rest of the kind of
why don't you
next
do that,
steps,
and then we'll bring it into the commission for discussion. Thank you.
So the next one, totally adjust and modify the tree species list going forward. You know, either have it at a upcoming Forest and Beach Commission meeting or a special meeting, or just keep the old one, and with minor tweaks, something that's a lot more palatable, that's less different, and more emphasis on local native trees. And we want to emphasize that we want to, when we get the draft, we're going to adjust it to taking the technical reports, but also balancing the public input and the local experts on forestry and ecology and everything. So we're not just taking the consultant's work at face value. Possible joint meetings with other commissions. We talked about it. It might be just a little logistics problem, but just, or at least a review maybe, if we could try that to see if that, all the ordinances and everything jive. Even though this is just the master plan, we're not to the point of overhauling the tree ordinance yet. That's down the road as well, and that's going to be even probably more work.
And if I may, on that, hot off the press, I believe it was the mayor, but I might be mistaken, suggested that we have a joint city council and Forest and Beach Commission meeting. I initially said maybe not yet, but the next step was Chair Brzezowski's will do the presentation of the community survey to the city council on July 9th. If you haven't seen that, you might want to do that. That might be the next best step, and then from there decide if we should meet with planning commission, council, both. So, but that's part of the process of going forward. That's some of the next steps in the future.
And then we really want to kind of, again, do not quite a reset. We want to bring back the steering committee now that we're really into getting into the meat of everything, to involve them again and really try to make sure that have them steer us like it's in their title, to make sure that it's lining up with our ordinances and the general plan. Just trying to reach back out and try to get the steering committee involved again. And then when we're all ready to at least put something like this out into the world, have another public meeting to kind of get more input on what we've come up with and how we're going to move forward.
Thank you, Justin. Commission, I'd like to bring it back for discussion on what we've been presented. Anybody have a comment? I have a few, but I'll let anybody have any feedback?
I have huge feedback, but what I see happening is a group of a lot of intelligent and activated people, whether it's a commission or the residents, trying to prevent what they see happening to Carmel versus what it was 50 years ago, 60 years ago, or when my family moved here in the early 20s, when there was a reason this place was established. And it was originally for artists wanting to do work in the woods. Well, we know it's a modern community too. There's been thoughts of, well, what do we do with the city trees that are downtown? What do we do with the city trees that are right-of-ways in heavy residential areas? I think there's a lot that can be done now before a master plan is redeveloped, just given what we have in the current ordinances. And a lot of that depends on resources. But I believe that you almost have to go block by block. The 640 acres of city trees have to be dealt with, and I know your department is doing as much as it can, Bob, with the finances you're getting, and you're going to get more. This is a long-term process. You have to wait 40 years, correct me if I'm wrong, to get a Monterey pine to be really forming into a canopy tree.
Could you talk to the...
Yeah, it takes a long time to get a canopy out of a Monterey pine once it's planted. It takes years, decades. I know because I've had 7 90-year-old pine trees come out in my own piece of property in the last 25, and I've replaced all of them. You have to remember that a pine tree throws seeds out, and the natural selection course requires only one to really survive and predominate. There's a lot of seedlings that will never make it. there's a lot of complex solutions to getting our canopy back to what other people remember and tell us what it looked like, and that's why they moved here. I don't think it's a big job. You just have to click away at it, neighborhood by neighborhood. I agree there's probably been some trees that have been planted that shouldn't have been planted. Even maybe before I was on the commission, I think I've even seen some after I got on the commission that have been replanted in public spaces that maybe that's not the right tree. I have questions, well, why was that tree put there when we've got an original ordinance that applies for these three main trees being supported and maintained? Moving forward, I just think there's a lot that can be done, and we should do more of it even before a urban forest master plan is approved by the council, and then you work on changing ordinances.
You need to project a little
Yeah,
bit.
if that makes sense.
I have something I'd like to say, though. I do think we have to accommodate a lot of the different people. I mean, we have a group here who feel very strongly about keeping the same sort of trees we've had. In what we dealt with in our study, which isn't maybe scientific, but it deals with people's thoughts, wishes, and emotions, and those aren't scientific to begin with. But there are a lot of people who would like to see some more trees. I came in 1943 as a little kid, but there was a period up until the early 80s that there weren't so many trees that you couldn't see the ocean. The views were much more available. Even I lived on Santa Rita, south of Ocean, and we had a nice view of the ocean, not the beach, but the greater ocean. And I hear that quite a bit, that they don't want to be quite so covered in by trees. The idea that we have, so in 1987, I think it was, that the Friends of the Forest developed, Remy left, so, and then it became, this idea of recommendation of 4 trees, 3 of them being upper canopy, was after that. So it hasn't been always. There were areas, and if you look at pictures of Carmel in these these are only 2 of them, there's plenty of others. There are places where there's plenty of trees that people wanted to plant them, and then there were open places. Our lot had 1 oak in back and 1 oak in front. The house next door had 1 oak, and the vacant lot had no trees, and there were only a few pines. And that was up until the 70s. I haven't gone back and assessed it, but we can't. Carmel is beautiful, and trees are very important. But there's other things important too, like views of the ocean. And if we're really going to do something about Carmel, this is getting off a little bit, but I was thinking again as I was driving over. We need to do something about parking on our regular streets. You can hardly see the trees as you're trying to negotiate between pickups and cars, and so you aren't looking as much. Mm-hmm. If you take that book about poems, Dale, what was the name of that book that you read a couple of poems out of? That little, it was Dora Hagerman. Yeah. So if you read, the White Sands of Carmel Beach. Right, and so interesting what she has as a title. But if you read her, there's 30-some poems, and I thought it was interesting because only 3 poems mention the pine tree. She talks about trees with leaves, and they weren't oak leaves; they were leaves that changed colors. I think there's been a strong group that has convinced us that we always have had just these main 3 trees. And that's not really the case. And I hear a lot of people saying, I'd like a few trees with color, whether it's a maple or a liquid amber or whatever. So maybe we have room for a little bit more than just the 3 trees and a redwood here and there. So that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Sarah. I think on the tree species, it was very interesting. I actually found the community survey to be very consistent with what we saw with some of Davy's work, and also with some of the comments that we saw at the community workshop, right? If you actually look at the overarching takeaway from the community survey, which was, we had very high participation on, Carmel residents love trees, right? They love their trees. They want to see the canopy maintained. They're very interested in the pines and the oaks. And pines, oaks, and natives. Natives came through loud and clear. And a little bit more biodiversity would be interesting to people in terms of enhancing where we are. So I don't think that what we saw at what came back from Davy in terms of their recommendations when they looked at our forest and gave us their scientific opinion on the health and state of the forest relative to what our survey showed. I also think that it's the combination of the work that Davy has done on those technical reports and the community survey that has actually formed the compelling basis for our forestry department to have more financial resources dedicated to it in our city budget. We've had many years of deferred maintenance. I think this was the first year our total budget for forestry was like 1.2 million. We have a little bit more than that. Not a lot, a little bit more coming in the current budget that was just adopted. But one of the things that we're working on, and we don't have ready to present yet, is we're looking at the tree inventory, and we're looking at the trees that were considered dead and poor.
Very poor.
Yeah, dead and very poor. So the categories that when Davy assessed the health of a tree, it was dead, very poor, fair, and good. And we had less than 50% of our trees, our public trees, less than 50% were in good health. And if we look at just the dead and very poor trees that need immediate attention, there's probably $3.5 million of deferred tree maintenance that will be required. That doesn't even touch the poor trees, right? So one of the things that city staff is working on right now as a result of all this data is we're trying to build an estimate of what is the catch-up budget going to be required, how much money is that, and have the opportunity to then go to council on how do we want to approach this. Is this something that we want to do over a 5-year time frame? Is it something that you want to try and catch up in 2 years? I think one of the things that our residents were expressing in that survey was not that they didn't like trees or that they didn't want pines or that they didn't want the cypress or that they didn't want trees in Carmel. It was a concern that we have so many old aging trees that need attention that rose as the highest level of comment in terms of maintenance requirements. So all of that I think is going to come together and help us get more money into the department to get our forest, right? And also to get us on a track. And I think that it's also important that as these trees are dealt with, that we also have a replanting plan. And I think that's where our forest plan is going to come into play, because we're going to be able to guide what are the when one comes out, what are the trees that go in. I think, Justin, one of your recommendations had been to adjust the tree species list. I'm wondering if it would be a good idea to hold a special meeting just on the tree species list, where we could have a roll up our sleeves workshop with you, whoever on city staff, and then whoever from the community wanted to participate. We've had so much comment on the tree species list that it would be great to have a session where we could really get through that and come out with something that take all of the input in a single session.
Good to have it be done too, and I think that would make direct public input would be good. What the logistics around it we'll have to figure out, but I think that makes sense. What do you think, Bob?
Well, I think I'd like to ask the rest of the commission if they're on board with that notion to have a special meeting to focus on the tree species list.
I think once we've had an opportunity to scale it
to where we want it and we can represent it, I think that would be a good idea to be able to get some further input from the community on that.
I think it's a good idea. I think one of the things, I wasn't able to come, I had COVID, but one of the things that I heard from folks in the community and then reading through these sticky notes was I think there was a desire on the part of some folks to have some expert folks weigh in. And so I wouldn't want to do a workshop without that, because I feel like we'd just be chasing our tail. And so whether that's having some of those folks attend that workshop or opine beforehand, I think that would be helpful.
I think on our steering committee, we have a couple of experts that are on the committee. And I think we've had a couple of experts in the community participate. So I completely agree, right? That needs to be driven by people who have expertise in that area. Balanced with, I think, some of what we heard from Davey. I think, Sarah, this is echoing your comment. You know, we've been encouraged by Davey to consider the benefits of, you know, broadening the biodiversity here so that we're not reliant on one or two species that potentially, you know, if something happens, then we have no forest, right? So I think it'd be useful to have that. If people are amenable to that, you know, maybe Justin, you could work on the list, and we can figure out how to do that.
Yeah, I think if we could re-vet our list that we currently have with these experts and get it to a point where we're actually looking, these are the trees that we're actually looking at replanting, and then get feedback on that rather than the, you know, broader list we had initially. That would be great.
Definitely. Was that everybody?
I do think on the joint meeting of Forest and Beach and the Planning Commission, I am interested in how we, and this is more a question, how do we connect with planning as it pertains to trees that might be in site plans for hotels, etc. I've noticed those ginkgos on San Carlos. Every time I walk by, I kind of like wonder how did these trees get here, right? Like these, it's sort of, so whoever wrote about the ginkgos on San Carlos, I hear you. I'm curious, right? Is how do we connect with, what is the appropriate way that we could be connecting or interfacing with planning to make sure that whatever our tree list ends up being, right? That they use that as a guiding factor in landscaping plans for commercial projects.
Perhaps, Justin, you can clarify when there's a private development project and their landscaping plan with trees or without trees for that matter.
Yeah.
It goes to you for review. But there's lists, there's what's called pre-approved lists of things that they can and cannot plant.
I don't think there is for plants.
Oh, for trees.
Trees, yeah. I look and if there's wildly invasive things, I mark stuff up.
What I think, to answer Chair Brzezowski's question, it's not that the Planning Commission identifies that this particular applicant has to plant olive trees.
Yeah.
It's the city's, staff, the planning staff, the forestry staff working together, which they do all the time, and for the forester to identify this is acceptable, this is not acceptable, and it's more complicated than that, because we try to have the developer maintain as many trees as possible, the healthy trees as possible. Right. Hey, design around it if possible.
Yeah, and we're talking
so sometimes it's an iterative
trees.
Process, and we've seen that when it comes to the Forest and Beach Commission. It's like, we want to get approval to cut down the tree. Well, did you try building in the back of the lot? So it's definitely an iterative process, and each site is a little different.
And it is private property. They can, for the most part, plant what they want. It's their property.
But I think if the commission wants to do a joint meeting with the Planning Commission, I think it'd be an opportunity to vet out.
Yeah, well, the right-of-way is separate. I'm talking about the.
We will. Just a minute. Don't worry.
I had a question on that, because there were a fair number of folks in the public comment period that talked about the Stillwell Hotel. So I'm wondering, maybe, Bob, you could use that as an example for us to just talk about the process, right? And to what extent, Greg mentioned in his write-up, hey, essentially don't relinquish your authority as the Forest and Beach Commission to review plantings. So just curious if you could sort of outline what were the requirements there, and how did we wind up with a bunch of olive trees, sort of continuing on this
They
point.
submitted a landscape plan. They did all that. We didn't do that. The hotel submitted the plans that they wanted to re-landscape with, and olive tree is on the current accepted tree species list. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm the new guy, so
No, I know. I'm
going to ask all the dumb
because that's
questions.
been.
but
what's allowed today going forward into the future,
Yeah,
as part of coupling this with the master plan.
Yeah, as of now,
makes sense.
The list has been there for the past 20 plus years.
So what I'm
Has
hearing,
that on
what
it.
I'm hearing though from folks is, as we develop this new, urban forest master plan, urbanized forest master plan, that type of scenario is something that we'd want to investigate.
No,
right?
definitely, and that's the whole point of the new list because of these issues. But again, those are on the current list as well as some other exotic trees.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've had a lot of public comment on the list that we were provided by the consultant. And that's I think that was at the heart of Bob's comment. If there's one part of the project that could have a redo, it would probably be on the tree species list, because I think we've heard a lot of important public feedback on that.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments internally before we open it to public comment?
Yeah, I just want to make one more comment, and we've touched on this, but we do have a lot of tree maintenance, and we have to look at what our resources are. If we're not able to take care of the trees that we currently have, do we need to make sure we can take care of them before we begin to add a lot of other trees? I mean, we have to really look at our budget, at our resources, and I understand that we want to keep our forest built, but we also need to look at, there's a lot of dead and dying trees that we need to take care of. And because of COVID and other issues, we are behind on that. So I just think that I'm hoping we can all sort of look at all the issues that the city's dealing with at this point. That's all I want to say.
Thank you, Tamara. I would say that just having a conversation with Tom and Justin on that earlier this week, a real credit to city staff, not just in estimating the cost per all of the maintenance, but when a tree comes out, to also include the cost of replanting, so that we look at it holistically and not just in pieces. So I appreciate that. That's important. Okay. As we open it up to public comment, I would just ask that if you made comments not off the agenda item at the beginning, that you just come up with new information and that you not repeat the comment that you made at the opening of the meeting. Just for, we had a lot of comment early in the meeting that was very helpful and good for us to hear. We just want to avoid having people repeat themselves in the public comment for this particular section of the meeting. So with that, I'll open it up to public comment, and I think we will, given the number of people, we'll keep people to a 3-minute timing on this session. Thank you.
Tom, can you put that computer down so we can see Kelly?
Thank you.
Victoria Beach again. I wanted to thank you all for thanking us for turning up. I want to point out that around here in Carmel, when folks turn out, it usually means it's an emergency, because when we feel confident that things are going well and our representation is understanding the community will, then people feel relaxed and they stay at home. When they don't feel that way, they turn up. So we feel this is an emergency. I hope that you all got a chance to read, which I just did during the meeting, this wonderful information you got from the Native Plant Society and from, well, you heard the Greg D'Ambrosia letter. The Native Plant Society letter points out that the community survey, the tree survey that's currently being discussed, and I know derided, that's a good, has 92 trees on the list. 8 of them are from this area. That's completely unacceptable. You asked, I wanted to thank Melanie Billig in particular for raising awareness of what's going on here with this project, and also say that list that I just passed out is something that I think she and others would agree represents a already studied, scientifically vetted description of our ecosystem. I don't know why we would need to reinvent the wheel on that. We already know it. She was asked her opinion on what list, and I don't want to speak for her, but what list she would produce. This is a list. There's lots of people who have worked on this before this group, and I think we should respect that. I agree with the staff that the tree inventory is, why not? That was terrific. That's great to know what we have. And that is a suitable assignment for the people who were given the assignment. And we have the suitable tools to maintain it and look at it. However, we have to recognize that those folks who are out there surveying were surveying a problematic, damaged forest. They have described the problem. The solution is not to reiterate the problem or to further damage a damaged ecosystem. So that is why you hear loud and clear this call for science, the science that's in that book, that list comes from, the science that could come from another, a set of, we talked about champion trees, and that was mentioned today. I'm going to pass this to staff. It's too long to pass out to everyone, but that is the information that the staff requested about scientific resources. There's 128 scientific papers that are referred to there. There's about 120 media reports there on work that's being done on how you repair damaged forests, like the one we have. I would also recommend that we look at, I'll just be quick now, we look at the good work that the inventory did, and we recognize that that's a problem, and we break with that, and we say there is no list that derives from that survey. The list that we need going forward to repair the forest comes from science, comes from research in the past, does not come from opinion poll, including my opinion. This is not about my desires for views or no views, or color or no color. This is about a living creature that predates us for 15 million years. Photos from the 1880s onward do not capture what has been here for millennia. So I, again, respectfully ask that we look at the science and make sure that we do not tweak the list we have, but that we use this break from the old consultants to get the scientific consultants in to teach us how to restore this forest.
Thank you.
Good evening, David O'Neill again. The workshop was amazing, and I actually had the privilege of being with Commissioner Burling at the same table, and also with one of the authors of this book called The Monterey Pine Forest. I had a chance to meet with her, and her name, again, Nicole Nedoff. And we talked a little bit about what this forest used to be, how long ago it was, where it was at, and you know, it's moved. It's like a living organism. It's gone down to the sea, and it's gone up to the hills, and so on and so forth. So at any given point in time, we would see it living a different life. But we should try to do our very best to give it its ecological health as best as possible. And so that's why so many of us stood up at every table and basically said, we want scientists, we want environmentalists to look at this and to give us their guidance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's very well pointed. I think that Nicole Nedoff would be a fantastic choice.
That's the list you have, by the way.
Okay, the list is
It's on your drive.
terrific. Yeah, so Nikki Nedoff, she knows the ecology of the Monterey Peninsula and our pine forest extremely well. She was at the workshop, and she would be a terrific addition to this discussion. I was heartened to know that people were quoting Dora Hagemeyer, who's a poet, early 20th century here in Carmel. And she wrote the poem To Carmel-by-the-Sea, and the excerpt is, "The salt white sand, the dips and coves, the wild birds singing through the groves, the somber pines with ageless green, unchanging, rugged, and serene." She happened to study Buddhism under Charles Sumner Green, who is one of our first planning commissioners. And those of you who are architecture nerds like myself will know Green and Green. He was a legendary architect. He moved here in 1916, and he wrote about the decision to move here. And he said, "I pondered, talked it over with my wife. Let's go to Carmel in the pine woods to find ourselves we've lost." She agreed, and we have no regrets. So the point is that when people are writing about Carmel-by-the-Sea back, in the early 20th century, often, whether it's in poetry or correspondence or descriptions of the town, they're mentioning specifically pines, which of course are Monterey pines. And it's so much so, the Monterey Pine Forest is so much so part of our identity that it's referenced in our land use and community character element in our general plan. And on the first page it says, "Located adjacent to Carmel Bay with gently rising slopes, the city has conscientiously retained its residential village character in the forest setting dominated by Monterey pines." And by the way, that document goes on to mention at least twice the term urbanized forest, which is an important distinction. It's simply the difference between what's there first, the forest or the town, right? So in our case, the forest was here before we were. So therefore, we urbanized that forest. It's an important distinction. But yes, by all means, I think it is a great idea, actually, to have a joint session between the Forest and Beach Commission and the Planning Commission, or possibly City Council, because it is a planning issue. I mean, so Monterey Pines and the Pine Forest are so deeply ingrained in how Carmel-by-the-Sea has thought about itself over its history, that it's very appropriate to involve the Planning Commission in any kind of discussion about what we intend to do with it. And yes, we should absolutely bring on Nikki Nediff, excellent ecologist and scientist, to help inform our discussion. Thank you.
Madam Chair, can I just make one quick comment? Nikki Nediff is a city consultant. She's our ecologist, biologist for the Mission Trail Nature Preserve. She is, in my opinion, she is top notch. And I believe we have been reaching out to her to talk to her about getting her expertise involved in this process.
Yeah, thanks, Bob, for clarifying that. She's been working with the city for a long, long time. In fact, she's on board right now, isn't she, Bob?
Yeah, she's.
Yeah, and so she's retired. She was on Big Sur Land Trust, and she's retired, and she really kind of wanted to get away from all of this, but she recognized, and she was prevailed upon to attend the meeting, so we would have her there and have her expertise and also have her see what's really going on. I think she's extremely important, and the Native Plant Society of this state, is extremely important. They understand what's going on in the forest, whether all of us don't. And they're an important group to be working with. Our current master plan is based on science. There's a third more of all of this science on this forest right there. And our previous master plan was totally based on good science, not a consultant that does not understand this forest. And it's not their fault. It's just that they don't understand the unique situation that Carmel's in. And I've been trying for quite some time to spread the word about that so that we don't do something that will cause irreparable damage to the forest itself. Because that forest is what's going to protect us. And the fools that cut everything down are going to pass on for future generations a place that is very, very difficult to live in, because there's that interrelationship between the forest, the Great Monterey Bay, and its huge, huge chasm that controls our environment and gives us the privilege of, while everybody else in the country is baking off, we are actually here in a very, very comfortable situation. I want to say that thank you for the previous speakers, because they've all mentioned to you extremely important aspects of what we need to pay attention to here. I think that one thing that's extremely important is you put together a nice packet here, but none of us have gotten to speak to the following numerous themes emerged from the workshop. And to make sure that these are properly understood by all of us, so that when we're working together, and I emphasize working together, that we're operating on the same field of understanding about what our concerns are. And I really would like you to understand one thing. Now my time's up, but we have a huge list of indigenous plants. And I gave Bob and Justin one list of plants, and also Victoria's. They're just in a different format, but they're here. We've got tons of plants that really need to be emphasized in our gardening, in our restoration and replanting. I mean, I don't think you probably even know 5 of them. And so the public needs to understand that there's a huge list of plants that are native here and are part of the restoration of this forest. So I just want you to be aware of that, and you all have one list, and I've given staff a list at the workshop. So I think it'd be helpful to go over on the page in here that we were on with talking about the attachments, 3 attachments, but then going through these themes.
Melanie,
and then,
I'm sorry.
Yes, one more word.
I'm sorry to interrupt
and
you,
then
but
going through the next steps. That would be helpful for all of us instead of, just wasting time.
thank you. Thank you.
I just wanted to know, who are you? Tom Ford. Okay, so you're Justin Ono, the new city forester. We've gone through a lot of foresters, so it's nice to meet you. And Tom Ford, you work with Public Works.
Yes,
okay.
very severe.
Oh, okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm Tasha Witt. When you're, I'm glad that you're going to seek out scientists. And when you do, I was also thinking about what Sarah Burling was saying about views. For example, the pine trees seem really congested, and it would be interesting from a scientist's perspective if these types of trees are trimmed or opened up, if that keeps the health of the tree. That would be good to know, things like that. And then, so then we can have a win-win scenario. And also so that looks like earlier you were talking about whether there could be olive trees. I built a new house here recently in the last 4 years, and leased residential properties. On the lower canopy city tree approved list is olive tree for lower canopy. You have to have 2 upper canopy and 1 lower. But I don't know about the public rights of way or the commercial district. I was talking to Victoria Beach, and she didn't think that maybe olive trees could be in the public rights of way. So that it might be the difference there. And then I know just from some of the residents I talked to, they were concerned there wasn't a video at the last workshop for people that couldn't attend, like myself or other people, so they were asking for that. Okay, thank you.
Andy Carr. Someone brought up about the trees that were taken down that had wires attached to them. So in August of last year, there were quite a few trees on Monterey Street that were taken down. And there were 2 trees that were not, and they were taken down they were ground out, taken down below the stubs. There were 2 trees that were not done. And I called, and I was told that it was between AT&T, Comcast, and PG&E. So my last email was from March, and actually, I didn't recognize you, Tom. This was from you, March 21st, that you sent, we, meaning maybe your division, sent a list of 131 stumps with wires attached to them that they'll come out to assess, which are from those 3 companies, and then they'll set a plan for removing them. So I'm not known to be a real patient person, but with age I've learned to be patient. And I waited to send another email, and then I sent one, and then I was told, they were on it. Then I sent another one. I was told that they were on it. So now this one is from March. Okay, so from August of last year, 23, and this is June, I just think the residents get a little impatient and lose their trust when the communication stops with their issues and the issues are not being taken care of. And I feel that...
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but our topic right now is the community workshop. So if you have other comments, they're very welcome as public comment, but this particular, right now we're just talking about the community workshop order
it's
of
not
business.
about the stumps.
And the next step.
Okay.
I'm sorry, not about the stumps.
I could address the stumps, though.
But if you'd like to make a comment, you're welcome to.
Yeah, if I may, let me just,
I'm back.
okay, if I may.
I'm going to have you hold just.
Yeah, just 1 second. Let me address the stumps, AKA totem poles. We know, we've known for years, every year, if not more than once a year, we have a big list, 130. There was 11 primary ones that were just really, really significant, but there was 130.
Well, the other thing too is in the survey of the trees they did, they noted the trees that have utility lines attached. So we do know exactly where they are.
We know where they are. We know, we've been calling PG&E every year. We call AT&T every year. The only thing they can do is I'm on camera, right? The only way they can remove the wires, once the wires are removed, we can get rid of the stumps. Okay? That's not the problem. The problem is the wires. As far as I know, the city doesn't have the right to go up and cut off phone lines or cable TV lines or power lines. To convert, they'd have to convert to underground at their own expense or get some other accommodation for overhead. That's the problem. It's the people coordinating with the utilities to have new service. We've been holding the PG&E's feet to the fire. Well, it's your line. You work with the property owners. Get this going. And every year they go, oh, well, we talked to AT&T and we talked to cable TV, and they call, and we get the same nonsense every year. So we're frustrated too. We didn't forget. We're on it. We have a precise list. We have geolocated every single stump that has a wire on it. And if anyone has some shears, and when no one's looking, that would probably be the fastest way to go. What is it? Ask for
forgiveness.
Ask for forgiveness versus asking for permission. But if you have some magic cure, we don't know what it is. That's all I have.
Okay. You may come up now. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No.
I'm back yet again. This might be my first meeting of Forest and Beach Commission. I think it is. And I think I can say, like Victoria said, that the citizens are feeling somewhat of an emergency here as we see what's going on in our city, our village, in terms of the trees. I don't know who's on the steering committee, but is anybody here that is on the steering committee? There
Yes.
is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. So they're listening to us. That's reassuring. I think I agree with everyone here that has spoken. We are a strong group. We're called residents. We want to be heard, not to have people on these committees, and not just your committee, but many committees here at the city that have their own agendas and what they think is right or what they want to do and are not listening to the residents. So we're beginning to wake up. We're beginning to see that people become more involved, that we are speaking with
representatives so that we can make an impact on our village. The CRA survey, speaking of surveys, said that 80% of the residents wanted our canopy trees, our regular trees, the ones we've been talking about. And that seems to have been kind of ignored for quite a time now. That was last year's survey. And I think that the letter by Greg D'Ambrosio was really a great Bible for what we were saying in the steering committee meeting. I think it's very much reflects the feelings of what we were saying then, and we're hoping that you carry forward with now. Thank you. Carol Hall.
Thanks, Carol. Dale Byrne. I'll be very brief. If this is what it takes to get good public feedback, let's make everything an emergency, because this is the way it's supposed to work.
Yeah.
Only at the beginning,
Yeah.
not the end of a process, right? Thank you.
Thank you, Dale.
Hi, Commissioners.
Peter.
Peter Quintanilla, arborist and member of the steering committee. So I want to address the question as to whether we should wait until we fix the trees that have problems before we start planting trees. I think we should start planting, especially Monterey pines, so that the community sees that something's being done. And most of those small Monterey pines will be 10 years before they actually need any serious work. Some initial pruning might help them. But if the community sees a lot of young Monterey pines being planted, and of course they need to get watered, then they see that something's being done. Otherwise, if we're going to wait until the management plan gets done and then decide, so that means we have to contract a nursery grower to start growing Monterey pines, because it's going to take a couple of years before they're available to plant. So if we can do that as soon as possible, then we have trees to plant. Thank you.
Ken White, resident. This is what you call a strike team. I call it a strike team because a lot of these same faces were at the police department, same subcommittee meeting, and they were at the flock camera, and we're here. So it does appear there's a little bit of interest in trees in this city, and it's an emergency as far as we think, as far as the public does. Over 100 years, over 108 years, I think we're close to it. The people that settle here and live here now, just like those residents all those years, were very clear that they wanted a village in a forest. Now that's a generalized term, whatever the forest is, but they want a village in a forest, as simple as that. They also want a cultural village. They want one that has design standards. And when we feel that things are not going in the right direction, the strike team, you'll see them from here on out probably. I got from your workshop something I didn't pick up, but repair in kind seemed to be the biblical word that we should be following. Repair in kind. In the past, when a big wind blows, people get excited, particularly ones that are new to the area. Everybody gets excited. This is just another case of, we had a big storm last year. And everybody gets excited because a few trees come down. And then it dies off. It'll die off. I'm going to tell you it will. But I guess the thing that is so important is the village in the forest has to be your byword. That's got to be written in stone somewhere. Now, you guys need a public relations person in the worst way. And I will suggest a possible solution that's cheap. You have Friends of the Forest. You have Friends of Mission Trail Park. You've got the garden, the Harriet Roundtree Garden Committee. You have the CRA. All have websites. For goodness sakes, if you have a question to find out, you want to know what the public is thinking, have somebody put something on those websites, get their cooperation, and have put something on the websites and say, answer back these 2 questions, and we'll help the Beach and Forestry Commission out, or whatever the thing is. But for Pete's sake, don't forget the public. And it's been mentioned here before, they're the ones that are going to make the decisions. You may think you will, but they're the ones that will make the decision. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Ken, I would just like to, as a point of information, add that on the community survey, of the 300 responses we had, 85% were resident property owners. And so we do have, while the methodology was volunteer, you know, that survey was in the Pine Cone, it was in every Friday letter I think Justin was speaking about. We did hear, and I don't think those survey results run counter to the comments that have been presented this evening.
I'm talking about at any time you want some information to support your positions, there's where you can find it.
Absolutely, thank you.
One thing I do want to mention, though, Ken, is that I'd asked someone who was in the CRA, and she mentioned that only 17% of the CRA members voted or registered on that survey. So we need to keep that in perspective. I still think, and what I'm hearing from you all is you feel very strongly about trees, but an awful lot of people want trees, but want it changed a little bit. Ken, what do you think?
Well, my history is if you send a survey out and you get something like 7%, 8%, you've done pretty well.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay, do we have any public comments? It looks like we have 2. Oh, we have one more here? Okay.
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
Hi.
Come on up.
It's with some trepidation that I come up here. And I'm really not even sure what I'm going to say, except for thank you all for what you're doing. And thank you all for what you're doing. My goodness, do we live in a passionate city or what? And what it appears to me is a relative, I wouldn't say outsider.
Can you speak into the microphone?
I didn't move here for the trees.
Can you speak into the microphone?
Yes, and I must say that those totem poles, unlike most, I kind of like them. I like them. To me, they're like Carmel. I mean, honestly. And they're granaries for the acorn woodpeckers. So if we want to be really ecologically friendly, we should leave our totem poles. Now, I know if we were going to vote on this, my neighbor and I would cancel each other's votes on this. So that illustrates to me the diversity of opinion. And what we're hearing are a lot of very vociferous opinions. And yet there is a lot of diversity. And so I, for one, want to say I managed to do the survey. And I'm kind of new here. So somehow you got it to me. And I had enough interest to put my 2 cents in. And so I like the results of the survey. I think it would be very useful if we could separate maintenance from the master plan.
Yeah.
God forbid that we ignore the maintenance we need to do at the expense of the science.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to stay with a little trepidation here. And I may alienate the goodwill I've generated. But besides strike team, one might also refer to the science community as the science cartel.
We can't hear you then.
So I'm all for more science, but I'm not all for paying for more science at the expense of the maintenance that needs to be done, because that's a safety issue. So again, I want to thank you. And I have essential tremor, so if you see that I'm shaking, thank goodness, at least at this point, it's not Parkinson's. But it is something that I have to deal with. And it just shows I'm pretty passionate too. Thank you.
Thank you. And for the record, excuse me, and for the record, do you mind sharing your name with us for the record? Thank you. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you. I had the pleasure of speaking with you at the meeting as well, so thank you very much. Very eloquently put. Thank you.
Anybody else in chambers that would like to speak? With that, Yvette, I'll let you turn it over to the
Nancy,
Zoom.
you've been waiting very patiently. If you want to go ahead and unmute yourself.
Okay, yes, I'm here. You hearing me?
Yes, go ahead.
Do you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you, great. A big support of many of the statements that are been made, so I'll be brief. Wanted to reinforce the positive support for native trees, whether it's in our private properties or in the public lands. So big reinforcements of that. I did want to reinforce actually a comment that Tasha had made, but I also defer to the experts who know what's viable, which is on the topic of views. I think trees should take precedence. However, I know there are many other areas way outside of us locally here that, that allow for trimming such that views are maintained while the tree maintains healthy and thriving above the line of sight. So I would love to see that be a part of conversation somewhere, somehow, and or the methodology by which we can address the challenge of trees and the impact on views. And then the other mention, and again, I defer to experts, but the point of pine trees loving to be amongst other pine trees, because of all of the pine trees that have come down for one reason or another lately, the benefit of a thriving ecosystem of pine trees where they cluster and can hang out with their buddies. We're losing that big time, and I know that message has been conveyed. But want to reinforce that again, unless they have a bunch of other pine trees around them, they are going to be less healthy and less protection for each other as winds and other weather elements might come to bear. The final comment on the desire for color. I mean, we all like color, but green is a great color. So let's go with the green and encourage the color to come from more of the ground shrubs and flowers that can be beyond the aspect of trees in our village. So I am fine with color in trees as long as it's a part of the native species personally. So just wanted to throw those 2 cents in. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Nancy.
Linda Smith, if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself.
Oh, hello, Linda Smith here. Just want to say I agree very much with Peter Quintanilla that planting of pines should start now, because and getting people to grow the pines on appropriate pines genetically would be a very good idea. There are very few of them in local nurseries these days. But CNPS wrote a really excellent letter, and I know you have it there before you, I understand, and copies of it are for the public, I think, are available there as well. But I just wanted to kind of elaborate on the biodiversity issue and read from this letter. To truly build resilience and support for local ecosystem services, the recommended list should, talking about the tree list, emphasize native species that occur naturally in and around the coastal Monterey Bay region. Commercial and residential Carmel is set within a natural Monterey pine and coast live oak forest ecosystem, and the use of native species is embedded in the city's policies, ordinances, history, and charm, as well as its local coastal plan. Vegetation native to the Carmel region has co-evolved with an abundance of wildlife species, birds, mammals, insects, and many varieties of important pollinators. The emphasis on non-native replacement vegetation in the draft recommended tree list, as well as the recommendation to reduce the dominance of native coast live oaks and Monterey pines in the native forest, breaks down the critical habitat values wildlife species depend on for the resilience of a myriad of organisms that currently coexist with people within the city limits. And CNPS recommends this list of prioritizations. Prioritization and emphasis on native plant species for residential and commercial landscaping when replacement of trees and large shrubs are required. Maintenance of the dominant native coast live oak and Monterey pine canopy in the natural ecosystem that has characterized Carmel since its inception. Maintenance of the contiguity of the native biodiversity of adjacent natural resources when considering the removal and replacement of trees and shrubs. That's the native Monterey pine forest of which we're a part. Modification of the draft recommended tree list, species list to include water requirement category in order to encourage selecting drought-resistant native species. Addition of native shrub species and cultivars, for example, ribes, rosa, Ceanothus, Heteromeles, that's Toyon, and Arctostaphylos, which is manzanita, and this is Los Manzanitas, by the way, for consideration on the list of recommended lower canopy species. Addition of ecosystem services to the resource benefits category in each of the Davi Resource Group reports. The ecosystem benefits of native vegetation can be difficult to quantify, however, are important and critical issues to assess in a thorough evaluation of the significant values that Carmel's forest provides. And consultation with staff in the Santa Cruz office of the California Coastal Commission to ascertain whether a revision of the city's local coastal plan is required as the city moves forward with the new urban forest management plan. And our current forest management plan within
I'm sorry,
is
Linda,
written-
we're past time. Is it possible for you to wrap up?
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, I just wanted to say that our current general plan and forest management plan are in accord with one another. So in essence, I think we just need to tighten what we already have rather than write a whole new forest management plan. It just seems to me to be a good idea. At any rate, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, with that, I'll bring it back into the commission. Are there any further thoughts on this topic before we move to our monthly forestry update? No?
I think just
Okay.
again, as the new guy, maybe it would be helpful for the public if you or Bob could just sort of outline what the process looks like on the master plan here over the coming months.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take a stab at it. Thank you for the question, Commissioner Booter. Well, Justin's going to be working with Davie Research Group to have them finish the plan that will be getting paid to do. Let's get that plan and get them finished.
Yeah.
And keep the data. The tree species list sounds like we're going to be reaching out to ecologists, scientists, others, trimming it down, and then bringing it a special meeting or next meeting or something. We'll work with the chair and vice chair on next steps of when to bring that back and have just a special workshop just focusing on fine-tuning it. It won't be adopted yet, but at least fine-tuning it so it's a good song. I'm guessing it might be we should be starting to plan out meeting with the Planning Commission. I think we need to identify specific topics.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we need to discuss that with the incoming planning and building director, kind of shake that out, what exactly that meeting would look like. So maybe that's a few months out. And then I think at the next meeting, another technical report. We'll keep those going until that's completed. Operations, there was another one. There was like two or three. Our planting, not the ballot, but the planting work plan. Maybe that would be a good one to present. So we'll keep We'll keep rolling out the specific technical elements of the plan.
But I think
I
the
think that's
draft,
answers to
I
it,
think
yeah.
the draft plan, once it's in from Davy, will be available for public comment, but I think prior, it'll be reviewed by city staff
Right.
prior to that, right? So,
Yes.
for example, if we find that, or I would hope that if the city staff finds that the draft has some of the challenges that maybe the tree species list had, that perhaps the city could work on revisions prior to releasing it for public comment.
Right.
Because I think that
Right.
the last process, for example, with the tree species list, was I think that was provided by Davy, and that was the list that was just brought to the commission and for public comment without any sort of vetting, review, input from
Right.
right, so.
We have lots of homework and we have a long ways to go, but we're getting there, I think. Right?
I guess one other dumb question. I guess, so they're presenting a draft to us.
No.
No.
They will not be presented, they will be handing us a draft to Justin.
input.
They sent him one draft already,
Mhm.
and he bled all over it with the red pens and sent it back. They're making comments, they're making the edits. Once those edits are incorporated and Justin's happy with it, at that point, we should discuss with the chair and vice chair to what extent we want to present this as a whole package, or there's no reason to issue something that defies the opinion of the community.
Yeah.
So there might be like, let's completely remove the executive summary, let's remove the introduction, let's keep the tree inventory, let's keep the resource evaluation.
Mhm.
So we're not there yet.
Right. No, I think I'm trying to wrap my head around, at the last meeting, we were looking at a chunk that was talking about, upper canopy versus lower canopy,
Right.
how many on a 4,000 square foot lot. And
Right.
my question is just, where is the direction for those policies coming from? For the, where are they getting the bullet points for their document?
Well, they're not going to deal with that specifically, though.
They've been giving every single possible document the city has
Yeah.
as a starting point.
Literature review, stakeholder interviews, they did a pretty significant fact-finding build-up before they started the process.
I'm still sorry. My question is just, there's going to be a draft at some point.
Correct.
Of this master plan.
Correct.
And it's going to have some policy decisions along the way. And my point is, who's making those decisions for inclusion in the initial draft?
The commission coupled with the steering committee.
I don't think they're coming up with
policy.
a plan for us.
I know what you're asking.
Somebody's writing a draft.
I think the draft that's being written. So the question is, what are the strategic choices being made as they draft that document, right? And I think they have the previous plan, which is out of date. They have the tree inventory. They have these chunks of technical work that they've done to sort of inform. So for example, one of the things they came early on in the very first community workshop last fall that ended up being highly controversial, right? Or I should say highly controversial in that it generated a lot of friction in that community workshop, which was also well attended by a different audience, but also well attended. They were saying that our tree species was way too concentrated on pines and cypress and oaks, for example, and that with climate change, there was an urgent need and calling to have significantly more biodiversity in the tree species, and that we should not be favoring those trees moving forward. Now, you can imagine how that was received by the audience that was in attendance at that workshop, for example. So that feedback, they received feedback that evening and that was ahead of us running the community survey, which the community survey clearly said, people love the trees, they love the iconic trees that we have, and there's an interest in maintaining that canopy. So they were taking the scientific inputs that they have, they're taking the feedback from the community survey, they're taking the input from the community workshop that we just had, that's all being shared with them, and they're coming up with a draft. I'll just say as a question, what I don't know is what that draft is going to look like. Certainly, if it's anything like the tree species list, then I'm not sure that's in our best interest to release that for public comment. I think it might be better for the city staff and commission to work on what do we do with this draft versus the previous plan. There was a comment here today, why don't we just revise the old plan? I think
And
until we see it, we won't know plans.
that's very likely that it's really just going to come back to us and the other groups. And
Yeah.
so it's going to, we've talked about taking a year maybe to really get this finalized.
I think Sarah, the previous forester prior to Justin, that's run this process with a couple of, I think she did it for the city of Denver, maybe. She's run it in a couple of she'd had at least, I think, 2 or 3 of these processes that she'd run. And she suggested when we started last fall that it was, a 2 to 3 year process.
Yeah.
It can be a 2 to 3 year process because to get all of the inputs, right?
Yeah, and on the question of inputs, it sounds like it started with the workshop process, right? A lot of those questions are sort of teased out. So yeah, we can wait for the draft to come in. And one option could be to take one of those per meeting and just try to talk about it, as a group and try to make some headway on the items that we know are going to be, ones that require some discussion. But yeah, thanks for the background.
And I think certainly, it was very scientific what they presented in the very first workshop was all really Davie Resources Group experts, scientists presenting to the community that was there. And there were significant concerns about the character of our current forest in terms of how concentrated it is from a species perspective. So I think is that helpful? Yeah. Okay. With that, I think we'll move to Justin.
All right.
The second order of business for the evening, which is the monthly forestry report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Brzezowski. Over the past month, we've been at a pretty busy month. We've been through a pretty long process now to remove a dangerous tree on a very dangerous tree on a private lot at the southeast corner of Casanova and 11th. So finally, at May 7th council meeting, the tree was declared an official nuisance and we were ordered to have it mitigated. So we had Topes Tree Service come and take the tree out. The formal process is to reclaim the payment of that, the removal through a lien on the property, and that was nixed. So we, out of the goodness of our hearts, cut the tree down, the private tree down for free. But the nuisance is mitigated, and it doesn't have any more chance to fall into the street because it was getting really crispy and dead. We helped Leadership Carmel complete their process on the scenic pathway that looks amazing.
It's nice.
The boulders look really good, and they had a kickoff ribbon cutting a couple weeks ago, last week. It was really awesome. Good to see everybody there, and I think they did a great job. Me and the environmental program manager, Mary Bilsey, went on a walk with the Monterey Fire Department, the fire marshal, and several other high-ranking people, the Monterey Fire Department, to look at Mission Trail with Greg, and just kind of go over some strategies of risky areas and how to deal with the budding property owners dealing with their fuel management. In terms of that CAL FIRE grant, we had a meeting with the higher-ups, the person who administrates our grant and then her boss, and they, again, assured us it's just changed 2 dates and we'll get $60,000. So we're
2 hours.
2 hours, yeah.
2 hours.
on top of the,
They assured you what? I didn't get it.
oh, just change 2 dates. They said it's very easy, even though I believe we've put in 200 staff hours. Tom had nightmares about it, like dreamed of the CAL FIRE logo chasing him, stuff like that.
How can you get a grant though and then they don't pay? Is that?
There were onerous requirements of reporting, and unfortunately, a lot of these problematic trees that people don't like were meant to be planted as part of that grant.
Oh.
And they kind of sat around in the interim between staff, and by the time we planted them, they didn't have the best chance for survival. But it was a greenhouse gas kind of, you're planting trees to try to combat climate change was the grant, and so they wanted a big list of big different kinds of trees, and it just didn't. Yeah. Our contractors removed 5 dead trees and 20 stumps. So I don't know if you've been seeing them out there. They've got some community tree services removed a lot of stumps, and I believe we've already planted some trees in there. The forestry crews planted 15 trees last month. They pruned 13 trees, removed 12 dead trees, and 5 stumps, and also picked up 5 piles of logs left by PG&E because they're, I don't know if you've noticed that too, that Davey has been out doing their yearly pruning and tree removal for the power lines. And just in terms of the numbers here, I want to just touch on, we have, the crew has so far, we've heard loud and clear, not only through the master plan, but also from direction from council. The crew has planted 86 trees this year to date, with a significant portion being Monterey pines. I just want to make that known that we hear, and we've been planting a lot of natives and a lot of pines. And yes, now we're just trying to figure out how to get them watered. But we're planting because when a lot of trees have come down, especially in the storms, and we need to replace them. We heard that loud and clear.
Justin, I have a question. How thoughtful are we about where they're replanted? I just want to add, because one of the things we saw in the survey was, there was a message around making sure that trees are planted in the right place, and the preference for the more upper canopy trees was in open space, parks, not medians, not downtown, out of the residential space. And I think one of the questions that we're going to need to clarify as we work on this Carmel Forest Plan, let's just get rid of urban, I agree with you, that solved a lot of problems, the Carmel Forest Plan, is where the best pines are best going to thrive, right? Because both at the community workshop and today, we've heard that these pines thrive best in groves, right? And a grove is more than, to me, implies more than one tree. And so when you think about a 4,000 square foot lot and you stick one Monterey pine, I'm just wondering if that's a good choice. Like, should we be focused on building groves of Monterey pines in places in the city where they can thrive?
It may, yeah. It's hard though too, because at the same time, a 4,000 square foot lot, the trees don't know about the property lines. So the trees are growing together with the neighboring trees and the right-of-way trees. So I don't want to discount and to, say that we don't want people to plant them in the neighborhoods or on their lots. The worry I do have, and I've had brought this up, and I don't want to get shot for it, but downtown, it's hard to have a grove of trees when they're spaced every 50 feet in 4-foot planter spaces. There are definitely some pines that are doing pretty well, but I feel like they have a very max limited of resources when they're in the downtown planter spaces. But in the medians, even as long as you're not blocking, traffic or views, they need a decent amount of space. And the guys have done a couple kind of experiments of planting several relatively close together, and if we have to take out the one in the middle in 10 years and have the other two kind of grow together, then we've been working on that too, to mimic that natural, because, you know, in nature you see on Huckleberry Hill, the fire burned in the 80s,
Right.
and they come up every 4 feet, but then the ones, you know, in natural succession, the weak ones die, they get shaded out. So we don't want to throw money away by planting them so close that we have to take them out. I mean, that's what they do in production forestry and tree farms, and that's what we don't want to make it look like. They don't want them all being perfect and homogeneous and wasting money on trees that are grown just for the sole purpose of making the other trees straighter.
But I do think that would be useful to integrate into like the tree species list as guidance around.
Like a planting.
Right, so a planting, so what is,
planting
like,
plan or
for
something.
example, exactly. So if you have Monterey pines at the neighbor or in the median or close enough to your home that it's going to be able to, it just, I think that sort of, that's where we need sort of the expertise around where will these thrive best.
No, it makes it, yeah. And
You know, groves, we probably have places we can create more groves.
Yeah.
But I think part of the sentiment that we hear is that, and I think it would be a good slide to add to our deck, is if we just look at the Monterey pines and the status of those trees,
Yeah.
I doubt we'd have even 45% be good, right? Just if you just look at that one particular species, given the age of all the trees. And so it's hard because people see them come down, but what is our plan or a vision
replenish
to
them.
create? And I think so it's a vision around creating successful groves where they can thrive.
Yeah, that's.
And not just these one-off plantings,
I think
which
that's a
you're
great
seeing,
idea.
which you're seeing right now not be successful, right?
I'd like to say one more thing, and I'm sorry, Justin, for interrupting what you're saying, but I think that the concern that I heard is that we had talk about our messed up forest and just, you know, things that we're perhaps not on the right path. So my concern is as trees are taken down, as trees come down, and we're talking about replacing those before we actually have a forest plan.
Oh, yeah.
Is that the right thing? So that was, and I can understand that there's concern that as trees come down that we're not replanting, but I want to do it the right way. I want to see us come up with our plan and make sure that when we're replanting, that we're replanting the right trees in the right areas. So that's, you know, I think that first things first, we have to make sure that we live in a city that's safe. And we have to make sure that all of the trees that need to be maintained and trees that need to be brought down, dying, you know, dead trees. I've got some right on my own street. And then we're looking, and it might only take another year or so, like we had just talked about. We've been doing this now for about a year. So if it takes another year, just to do it right, to know we should be planting this here and not just a pine came down, let's put a pine back, because maybe a pine shouldn't be there. You know, so I don't know if there has to be some sort of a hold on certain things. You know what I mean? I don't know.
It's hard. It's a case by case basis, because there's definitely trees that have fallen, and you know, I go, oh, we need to plant pines, but I find it hard in good moral to plant a pine directly underneath the power line, knowing that tree only has maybe a 30-year lifespan,
Setting
because they're
it up for
going to cut
failure.
it in half, or they're going to remove it. And you know, there's trees that maybe were planted a little off, or they were planted really close to a power line, and maybe that's part of why it, you know, didn't make it. And that's, you know, the right tree in the right place, they always like to say.
And this might be really, oh, I'm sorry, Sarah, I'll just say this one last thing. I apologize. I'm concerned about almost planting any trees right now until we know what we're doing. Unless we know this is a good spot for this tree, until our plan is complete. That might be absolutely off the wall, but I'm concerned. I just want to make sure, because I see trees in town and I think, what is this doing here? You know, and I just want to make sure that we're not messing up our forest anymore. So I almost would like to see us just sort of pause for a moment and reflect and get our plan put together, and then go out and start to execute our plan.
So let me just say something along that line, and that would be that really other people, like Friends of the Forest, should not be planting, but maybe we don't have to wait that long. But if you have ideas where they should be, and I can take you around and point you some places that they've put trees that don't help the tree and aren't appropriate. I mean,
Yeah, we've been working more closely with them recently, and
I hope
they're
so,
working.
because I know that they like to stick trees where they want them. And
Yeah, I mean, I hear that, but at the same time, I don't want to stop planting trees, because every day, more trees die, and more trees come down. So I think
And
that,
knowing it's the right place, that's fine. But like you had said, and I've seen them too, trees that perhaps aren't put in the right place, or they're next to a tree that really they shouldn't be next to that tree. Those sorts of things.
No,
Just with your oversight.
Yeah.
If you have the oversight.
and then like when we have our contractor remove it and grind out like a stump and make a perfectly planting space. If it's got, look, that one's got enough space, we should plant. That can support a pine. And we try to do that, to try to make it tailored to the right place. And,
right.
That's...
I think part of what you're hearing from us is collectively, I think we all, I can think of several trees that are in the wrong place, not going to make. I think we've all bumped into that, and so I think it's more, how do we just make sure that you have the appropriate oversight on trees that are going in, and maybe also to address the specific pine concern that we continue to hear about, which is important, right? Maybe we need to identify, like as we go forward, and maybe we could do it even as part of when we get into the tree species list and providing guidance. Maybe we could identify places in the city where we could cultivate new groves of Monterey pines for the future, so that we focus like the pine planting in new designated grove areas or something. Does that make sense? I just think that we need to come up with some places where we're going to create groves that will be able to be successful.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. We're kind of back in the Urban Forest Master Plan.
Yeah,
Sorry, why don't you go ahead?
I think that's
we're not giving Bob much time to give.
Yeah, a good thing, because Bob just said, make sure you draw out your forestry report, because
hit the highlights.
Because I thought that we were, it was a light agenda that, we got so much public input. That
you still have public comments for the forester's report?
Do we have anybody in chambers that would like to speak on the forester's report? Do we have anybody online that would like to speak on the forester's report?
No one at this time.
Thank you. Any additional comments on the forester's report?
Not quite with the program with you when you called for comments. Very nice report, Justin, very, very nice. And Bob, I really wanted to thank you for getting on top of the weeds in this town. I mean, particularly Unipero was like an accident waiting to happen. I wondered how long it was going to take us, and as soon as I started getting frustrated, you did it, which I really appreciate. I think these reports that you and yes, I can give you a compliment, Bob. I really want to thank you both for the excellent jobs that you do synthesizing everything that you've done over the month. I think it's very, very, very admirably done. I just wish that the public could see some of this because it's so important. Justin, one thing I just wanted to ask you was, when you talked at the budget, and this directly relates to this, when you talked at the budget about someplace, not especially in here, but another document, we were talking about taking down 167 trees. Is that based upper? I assume it's upper canopy. I shouldn't assume anything, but how did we arrive at 167 trees? Is that related to what you see as this 3-year plan, or or what? Because I really wasn't sure.
Which part are you talking about?
Well, no,
It's
what
not
I'm
it's not
talking
an
about is
outport.
something that do you get what I'm referencing, Bob? Because do you, Tom?
Yeah,
I believe you're referencing,
you can come up.
Sure.
I hope I'm on the right track here, Ms. Billig. I believe that you were referencing a chart that Justin had showed. There was 167 dead trees. It was part of our inventory. We had said like how many trees need to be removed. There were the dead trees, the very poor, and the poor. It was like 167, 131. I thought that might be what you were referencing.
And so, but we don't know what kind of trees. Like, it makes a big difference if they're 167 Monterey pines. That would be a lot, given how many hundreds we've cut down in the last number of years. So I was just curious, is that overall trees in town that you have to deal with, that maybe there are acacias that are dead, or some other weed plant that's dead?
It could be all kinds. That's the hard part. Is weird. Just getting the numbers. There's oaks, acacias, all different kinds of dead trees, and also different sizes too. So it's not just the.
Yeah.
We can break those down by species, though.
Oh yeah, we
can. Yeah, I'd really be interested in knowing that, and because, when I saw that in the document, I thought right away, well, no one's going to know what species those are, and it'll make a tremendous amount of difference whether it's eucalyptus or whether it's acacias, which are weeds as far as I'm concerned, and Monterey pines or oaks or whatever. And I just think one other thing that we were talking about, can I go on for a second more?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Now I lost my thought. It's what happens when you get 80.
I know what that's like.
Where was I? Tom, where was I? You're still young.
You were.
I thought you were wrapping up.
You were talking about knowing what the species were that were that were dying.
Yeah. Well, that I got, but it's because I think the public, if they just see a number there, they're going to think the worst, But if it's delineated somewhat as to whether they're upper canopy, lower canopy, and then my thought was, that I thought I'd forgotten, but I haven't, is that in our tree list, in the tree list like I gave you and Victoria gave you, they're both basically the same list. We have so many trees that you all, I don't even think about, that fill the void underneath the power lines or inappropriate spots. I mean, we've got toyans. Do any of you know about toyans? Or coffee berry, or just a whole variety. There are tons of lower canopy trees that are native to this forest that no one talks about and no one plants. So
I think we'll be able to address that in the special
but don't
meeting.
let the Davi company mess around with what scientists have already, and what's already existing forest, okay? Thanks a million.
Please come to the special meeting. Thank you. Come to the special meeting on the tree species list. Well, it will for sure.
It'll be a place that we can all find it out.
Yes.
Remember that there are a lot of people who are my age that, are not as vertical as I am in this town. And the issue is, you all, most of you, only an exception or two, like me, really know how to operate and find out information in this town. You guys assume that everyone looks at the Friday letter. Well, that is absolutely not true. It's astounding how many people don't. How many people can
We need to stick to our time.
We're supposed to
be through in 5 minutes, and Bob has to give his.
Oh, okay. Well, go with your program then.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No other comments online, right?
No, not at this time, no.
Okay, Bob.
Okay, here's the Public Works Report for May 2024. First, I'm going to start off with City Council actions related to forestry, parks, and beach. Actually, this happened last week in June. Talk about the budget. The City Council adopted the city's budget for the new fiscal year starting July 1st. In terms of forestry, the good news is all 4 new positions in Public Works was approved. There's 1 project manager, an assistant city forester, a full-time forestry permit technician, and an additional maintenance worker to emphasize, or emphasis on forestry. That said, it takes time to recruit. The people are not going to be on board July 1st. Start the process in July, but it could be many, many months before all those positions are filled. But at least we have the positions approved. In terms of forestry budget, there was the $1.51 million for the new fiscal year, which is up from like 1.3 million from the current year. Council approved the new fee schedule, which includes a new fee, which was mentioned last meeting, I believe, $200 for a dead tree. So up until today, if someone comes in and they want to have a tree removed, whether it's alive or dead, it's a $680 plus or minus dollars to apply for that tree removal permit. So going forward, if the tree is dead, it's only $200, which covers the cost for Justin to go out, confirm it's dead, update the tree keeper,
That's great.
process the permit, that type of thing. So it's more fair, equitable, and if the tree is still alive, it encourages people to take care of the trees. In terms of capital improvement projects, council decided to defer for 1 year the Doolittle Bridge over the Mission Trail Nature Preserve Creek. That's where the concrete fort is, where there used to be the pump house and the steel tank. So that's still a future, that will be a project, it's just deferred a year. There's too many other projects going on. And council approved $250,000 to design the 4th Avenue outfall shoreline wall reconstruction project. So that's between Ocean and closer to 4th. It's the concrete wall outfall, is a seawall that the consultants told us about as part of the beach condition assessment. So now we have money to get the design started to reconstruct that. That's it for council. In terms of other capital projects, speaking of the shoreline infrastructure repair project, so the request for proposal was issued last month. We had a pre-proposal meeting, had several consultants show up, asking some good questions. So they're preparing their proposals, and we get that July 3rd, and select a consultant who will design the repairs of those 2 beach access stairs that are structurally deficient, to design that seawall, the 4th Avenue outfall seawall, and to assess all the other revetments and seawalls and stairs, and provide environmental permitting as necessary to get those projects done. Also, Mission Trail Nature Preserve 3 drainage projects in the stream. The contract was approved last month. We have all the contract was executed. We issued notice to proceed. The clock is ticking. The environmental consultants will be out there imminently to count birds and dusky-footed wood rats and legless lizards and anything else that might be in the way of where the pipes and little boardwalk and swale reconstruction is going to go. So that project is about to launch. Should be early July that you'll see that under construction.
How long do they think that will take?
About less than 3 months. They'll be done all wrapped up by the end of the year for sure. See. In terms of the Climate Committee and the Coastal Engineering Study Phase 2, Phase 1 was the shoreline infrastructure condition assessment, the sea level rise, the shoreline vulnerability of infrastructure, those types of things, the tides going in and out, the beach sand movement. That was Phase 1, that's done. Phase 2 is up and running. One of the components is a community engagement plan. So the plan has been developed. It's been submitted to the Coastal Commission. This is part of the $500,000 Coastal Commission grant. So we have to do a community engagement plan, very comprehensive. It's outreach to the schools, outreach to every tribal entity that's ever been in this area, neighboring agencies, every agency around. So it's a very comprehensive plan, and so we're waiting for comments back from the Coastal Commission. The very first step is to set up a website or webpage within Public Works, Environmental. It's so like as the reports, the technical reports will be on there. Surveys will eventually be on there. Presentation materials will be on there. So we kind of set up a web page. It's like sort of like we did for the Urban Forest Master Plan. Set up a page upon which future things will be posted. Everyone left.
Well,
I'm starting to bore myself at this point. Yes, okay. Volunteer organizations, a shout out to Cindy Lloyd and Kelly Burke. Up in the Golden Triangle, the northern entrance to the city. Hopefully you all know where that is. They spent, I guess it was a long weekend, a lot of pruning. They created a big pile of weeds and debris and whatnot that we had to pick up. But anyway, it looks a lot nicer if you head up in that direction. So that was done as volunteers. Dale Byrne already mentioned Carmel Cares, the Ocean Avenue Meeting Island project. If he didn't, I was going to talk about it, but he covered that. And also Vista Lobos Landscaping, they're just getting started on that. Oh, and Friends of Mission Trail Nature Preserve requested, they have electrical needs.
Really?
Yes, so like the power
For
of power
trimming and
tools.
stuff like that?
Yeah,
Right.
yes.
Okay.
So we set up a special circuit within the Flanders Mansion garage so they could have power, because they're our friends and we try to help them. So a little facility maintenance project that helps forestry.
This is
really
just
what it
to
is. Yeah, power tools
recharge
and,
their-
yeah, it's not to plug in their TVs or anything.
Yeah, I didn't think they were going to have such a long cord.
Have we asked our friends how many Monterey pines we can put in that nature preserve? New
Well, I
pines?
haven't.
No.
Get on it.
Might be a good question.
Okay, and
100 would be great.
miscellaneous. Last month, the third week of last month, we celebrated National Public Works Week. We had a nice barbecue in Forest Hill Park for those people, and there's quite a lot of people who do read that Friday letter, despite any public comments. So we had a nice picnic. It was a beautiful day, great weather.
So nice.
Had a lot of fun, forestry and streets and facility maintenance. We're all playing basketball and frisbee and had a picnic. And part of that process, we broke them into 4 teams or 3 teams, and they had to decide what team building projects to do next for the city. The last one we did was last Christmas, right before Christmas. We
That's great.
reconstructed the little footbridge on Mission Trail Nature Preserve near 11th. And we redid the entry road. That was a fun project, saved tens of thousands of dollars for the city, and we all, Ms. Culver was the demolition crew. She demolished the old bridge with her foot. So like literally it was all hands on deck. I was scrubbing structural steel. So it was a fun project, a day and a half. The next 2 projects, one is more internal, renovate our kitchen break room.
Yeah, the staff break room that is the only place in Public Works that still has the 70s wood paneling in it. So we're
60s.
60s,
yeah. But that's the first project. The second project, which is more pertinent to this group, is there's a number of, we were in the Forest Hill Park, the lower Forest Hill Park, and we're looking around, and gosh, it needs pruning. There's a little boardwalk that's starting to fall apart, and so we're going to go out there and spend a day or 2, and every one of us, we're going to roll up our sleeves. Everyone's invited, and clean up the park. So that was a fun little exercise. Temporary, and again, this is miscellaneous, so it's truly miscellaneous. One of our temporary forestry permit technicians is Archana Singh. If you go in to talk to a vet in the afternoon, she's the person on the left in the lobby. Anyway, she just got her master's degree in human resources from the University of Southern California. So good for her. Smart lady.
Is she going to stay?
What's that?
Is she going to stay?
Yes, until we get a permanent full-time
she's a part-time.
permit technician.
Oh.
Okay, and we certainly will, what's the word, twist her arm to apply.
She went to school for human resources, though, so.
Well,
Yeah.
we're still going to twist her arm and make her apply. In the North Dunes Habitat Restoration site, lots been really going on. Joey Canepa has been working with volunteers to pull weeds, do herbicide. Yeah, herbicide at specific locations and things. Field crews removed a lot of ice plant, sheets of ice plant. And Denise Stuffing Associates is an environmental consultant, did transects to count up the number of seeds and plants and legless lizards and whatever they do. And they're finalizing the report for this current fiscal year. So in a month or two, they'll be here, they'll make a presentation, or Mary Vilsey will make a presentation. Here's what's going on, here's an update of what's going on at North Dunes Habitat Restoration Site. But anyway, things are going pretty good. It looks good up there if you get a chance to swing by. This is important. At the Devendorf and First Murphy Park restrooms, we put in some new doors and painted them. They're steel doors which open and close. The last ones you had to literally kick closed and kick open. Last week or so, there was a cracked skylight at Upper Forrestal Park next to the...
In the bathroom.
In the bathroom next to the pickleball court. We should mention I'll mention the pickleball. Upper Forrestal Park restroom. There was
Is it now called a pickleball court? Excuse me.
It's a tennis court / pickleball court. Thank you.
Do we have any way, I know people are only supposed to use it for a certain amount of time. I'd like to toss in, do we want to have some sort of a system? I'll just say this.
Sign up first.
Yeah, a sign up. I'm being serious because,
Yes.
I mean, I know when my kids go there and, there's folks there that are doing the pickleball and they're saying, can we play it? And they wait for an hour. We just got here. Everybody just got there. So, but I think
yes,
in
this
fairness,
issue has come up before.
Should we?
And it's first come, first serve, and there's no way.
There are
unless we have a guard, a paid guard,
cities.
sit there and count hours.
We can have slates where you put down what time that you got there. There are.
We can try that.
Yeah, I think that might be a fair thing to do,
Okay.
where you sign it, it's written down, it's in ink or
You're the vice chair. We're going to do it.
Okay, we're going to do it.
Okay, you got that, Justin?
Okay.
Got it.
Okay, we'll try it. Let's try it. See if
I
it
think we
works.
should. Okay.
But anyway, we replaced the cracked skylight. I think a tree branch fell, cracked the skylight, which is okay because the skylight was leaking for years anyway. So we replaced it. For the busy Memorial Day holiday, we provided additional staffing, dumpsters, portable toilets, and sinks for the event. That seemed to go pretty good. Unlike prior years, less complaints. I think last year there was a lot of people screaming, so much trash and everything. I think it's a combination of the volunteers, city staff, more dumpsters, that type of thing. Placing the dumpsters strategically. So I think we're getting the hang of it. And there was a lot of people here that weekend. So it went pretty well. We rented a skid steer and redistributed sand at the Del Mar parking lot, the slope down from the parking lot down to the beach, a little bit west of the volleyball courts, and added sand at the base of 8th Avenue Beach access stairs. I'm not sure if this was Dale's photo at the end that was on the screen for a while. There was the washed out equipment access ramp. I don't know if it's still 14 feet tall, but it's a steep cliff. Anyway, nonetheless, it was closed off, but people were walking down to the beach through the remnants of our beach access ramp. Well, not only was that not kosher, they were ripping out ice plant, they were exposing our irrigation system, they were exposing our drainage, our dry weather diversion channel outfall system. They were causing a mess, and they're still going down there. So we closed it up. We have to backfill it and everything. So we fixed the damage, but and then speaking of people refusing to obey the stop, not the stop signs, but the
Signs?
closed signs. I just put in a note when I heard about the 12th Avenue and 10th Avenue stairs to my street people to get 20 to 40 plywood sheets for each stairs and completely shut down the top and bottom of those two stairs that are structurally unsafe. Well, the nail was a little embarrassing, but there's no reason that anyone should be going up and down those. And if they're refusing to obey the one board or whatever, the signs,
Spikes.
if they want, I put this, I said, the only way anyone can get into those stairs is by helicopter.
Right.
And is that it? So close. That's it.
I'd just like to say a couple things. 14 people talked, including the 2 people here. Remember that they don't represent the whole population of Carmel. They talk as though they do. We really have to keep that focused. And the other thing is we really need to stick with the 3 minutes. And whether it's going to be you or one of us be a crabapple.
I was going to ask about this because it came up in the ethics and integrity. I don't know if you caught that. There was a section on public comment. So under state of California public comment laws, it's 3 minutes unless there were a lot of speakers, in which case it can be 2.
Yeah.
And so I just ran a quick calculation. We actually had 25 people, some people spoke multiple times, but an hour and a half of our 3.5 hour meeting, right? So nearly half was in public comment today.
Yep.
And I think I think the reason, I didn't realize that we were going to have so many speakers, which is why I probably perhaps made a mistake in allowing the first speaker to read the whole letter beyond 3 minutes. But it is possible, it was in our training today, that you can ask to see how many people intend to comment, and if you have over a certain number, it can be a 2-minute comment period as opposed to 3. So I just think that this isn't in any way to discourage public comment, but we have community workshops where we have hours and hours of participation. It may be that we need to.
This was uncommon too. This was a lot of comments.
I think, but
and I think you did make it clear, and I think you tried to make it clear with the first person with being polite and trying to allow them to finish, but you were giving them your time is passed.
Well, when they come up, we need to say, you have 3 minutes. We do stick to that.
And it can be fractions thereof too, in terms of.
It's also, I think there's go ahead.
Last night at City Monterey for the Parks and Recreation Commission that I sit on, we had 6 or 7 because there's issues, and the mountain bike community was there. And there was enough people out of the ordinary that it's, okay, we have this many public comments, but we have 15 minutes allocated. So it's not 3 minutes, now we do the calculation, you actually have 2 minutes, 45 seconds, something like that. And I don't know if there's a part of the law where you can just designate a chunk of time, and then however many people get fractions.
I think what I saw was the 3 minutes to 2, but I think this is a question actually for the city that we can follow up on separately. Like, what do we do?
We'll ask Nova about it.
No, I don't think we need to talk to the city. It's been done for years, the 3 minutes, and if we want to cut it down, I'm sure we can. We are, since I've been on this, we haven't been firm about the 3 minutes. So I think that's something we need to start doing and making clear right from the beginning.
Right, but I think there are, state guidelines on if you're going to adjust the 3 minute period. There's state guidelines on under what circumstances are those revisions in a particular meeting allowable. I'm not saying in any way we want to suppress public comment. We want public comment, right? But it's also just a way to manage how the input on every meeting.
If they know that's going to happen, they'll be a little more prepared or a little more organized.
That's right.
And then we won't have Melanie coming back and
right. And if we
I think
have
there's
a letter,
also
you don't have to
limitations
read a
on the
letter.
number of times you speak, as
Necessarily.
well as
is
also if you have an organized effort at a meeting, there's also guidelines around that also. So some of those things would just be useful probably to know.
Did you want to open up for public comments on my presentation? Because I know Mrs. Toomey has a comment.
Her hand is not raised.
I know.
Would anybody like to make a comment on
I know her well enough.
on Bob's
I know, she's on.
Public Works report?
This is a no.
We don't have anybody
That's
raising a
not a
hand
hand.
online. How
No,
about
I don't.
anybody, is there anybody on the commission that would like to
No.
make a comment on
No.
Public Works Department?
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
I always appreciate your detail and getting
Oh.
everything that's happened over the last 30 days. I actually commented to that.
Well, thank
How
you.
do you do that?
Just FYI, the Foresters Report and Public Works Report are combined and it goes to council
Okay.
3 weeks after it comes here. So they see the same thing.
Okay.
And most of them actually read it. And
Yeah.
And then
they ask me, why only 6 trees this month there, Justin?
And then before we close, does anybody have any future agenda items they'd like to see on the agenda? Input, future agenda items?
I'm just always, every time I get on one of these boards or commissions or whatever, all the things I'm on, I always try to, there's a ratio of like time spent to work that gets done that's like sort of mind-boggling. And I wonder if we could think about, pulling out some of those key decision points, for example, out of the master plan, so that we can have really like a substantive discussion amongst ourselves on specific items. I feel
Start
like
to get through it.
Yeah, just like if we just sort of broke it down month by
yeah.
month, and I feel like we'd get more done.
Just to be clear, I think, let me throw this in, if I may. We talked about chunks. By chunks, we refer to of the last 9
6
months,
months,
6
yeah.
months. We've presented a specific module or a
Right.
chunk or a technical study. And we
When it's
debated
ready.
it. Yeah.
No,
When it's
I think that's fantastic.
So
You're kind of
so I
doing
think
that
we've been
already.
Doing that.
You're doing that already.
We have some more to go.
Yeah, my only question is, I'm thinking about getting out ahead of the part that's, I don't think those are going to generate a lot of consternation. But I think the piece where we're actually there are sort of like, I would call them policy level decisions, right?
Right.
How many upper canopy trees,
Right.
lower canopy trees
That's what
do we
we're
have?
aiming to, but it's going to take a long time.
Yeah.
And
It is.
Yeah.
unfortunately,
That won't be in the
I mean,
master
very,
plan?
very little would.
Those are the ordinance revisions that will follow what's in the master plan.
Right. But the
right?
plan will be the guiding document to make those policy decisions and ordinance law changes.
We do need those decisions
Well,
made.
you're coming on at a really good time because we're just about to receive that. So this has all been, even this meeting was very atypical because we had a lot of people coming in after last month's
Right.
meeting. This isn't usual
Yeah.
to have this much comment. And we don't have anything to give back yet. So that's probably part of it. They really want to get in what they feel. And so we will have that soon, and we can start to tackle it. We just don't have it yet,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's, we're almost
In
there.
betwixt and between is always a
Yeah.
hard place.
Yeah.
Okay, it looks like we had, so no future agenda items?
We have a public hearing, I believe, one item.
Oh,
Yeah, there's
Aren't we supposed to quit at 5:30?
Yes.
Yeah.
we have a public hearing about a tree that's damaging a structure next month.
Okay.
And then we'll bring another so-called chunk of the.
And I'll find
master
something
plan.
from the master plan.
And then we'll decide if,
Yeah, I just was
yeah.
making sure we asked for future agenda
Yeah,
items.
Linda Smith raised her hand, I think in terms of future agenda items, but if that's
Linda, did you
possible.
have a future agenda item?
I did actually have a suggestion.
Okay,
If there were a joint meeting between the Planning Commission and the Forest and Beach Commission, perhaps Nikki Nedeff of CNPS could give a presentation, a sort of educational presentation, as she's done in PG and several other locales locally, on Monterey pine forest ecology, and as it relates to Carmel, perhaps.
thank you. Noted, okay. And with that, I think we are adjourned.
5:30.
That was a.
Oh, can I have the write-up so we can get copies of that? Part about, people only get, no, not that.
I'll call you. Yeah, yeah.
The,
Oh, wait, okay.